Welcome to the Mountainside Podcast. Our returning guest for this episode is my friend Donny Dust. He is a primitive survival expert, owner and instructor at Paleo Track Survival, the author of several survival books. Donny has starred in multiple films and reality TV. He is currently the co-host of reality TV's Mud, Sweat, and Beards. But above all that, Donny is a great human. It's an honor and a privilege to call Donny a friend. I thoroughly enjoy his company. This was a great conversation, and I hope you enjoy. Technical issues. But Donny's back in here. Welcome back.
Thank you.
The best part about our last episode is it was strictly between you and myself. And it was a great conversation. I really enjoyed hanging out with you. So
yeah, man.
Thanks for coming back. It's the lost episode that nobody will ever hear.
They'll never hear it.
And you and I got to spend
we just
at 2 hours interrupted with each other.
Yeah, it was great. It was like a date with none of the good stuff.
Right?
No, it was awesome, man. I had a good time.
No, I did too. And congratulations on the new TV show, man. Mud, Sweat, and Beards. My family is eating it up, man.
Awesome.
Like my kids religiously watch it on Monday nights now.
Awesome.
Yeah. You know, they were into survival shows kind of prior to this, and I was like, hey, my friend Donny's got this new show coming out, and you should check it out. So they're major fans now.
Cool, man.
So might have you sign a couple autographs or something.
No problem. I
got
got
on the way out.
Well, speaking of, I did bring a couple books for you to hand out to your kids.
No way.
Anyone that might be interested in just kind of learning a little bit more or taking an adventure in a book.
This is awesome. I actually own this one.
Right on.
Yeah.
Cool.
And when are you coming in to do the audiobooks?
I do have time. I'm actually moving into a new place with my girlfriend and kids. So that's like the move's happening. I'm upgrading, so I have like a bed now, and there's in a relationship you get some of these finer things. I had a TV that was on a Yeti cooler and like a $5 like thrift store like chair that had cat claw marks in it. So there's some upgrades, but it's all good. My kids are pumped. But I think once I get moved in, I'll wind up coming up and doing the audiobooks. It's just hard because it's summer, and it's like
It's my favorite time of year, man. Like I have the hardest time leaving. I still have to travel to make some money here and there because I can't say no. And it's just like leaving Colorado this time of year. It's like heartbreaking for me, man. Like it's my favorite time of year. So Earth Roamer. Yeah. If you don't have this, where is this available?
You can Amazon, or Donny Dust. I already forgot my own name. DonnyDust.com. You can go there as well.
Perfect. And then the other one is Scavenger.
Yeah. Good little books. I enjoyed writing them.
Oh, these are signed too.
Yeah, man.
Somebody lucky is going to get some books. So.
Yeah, or you could try and make a buck off them, selling a little side hustle.
No, I'm all about regifting, but yeah, if you're looking for a Donny Dust signed book on the black market, DM me and we'll start a bit more.
No, I'm actually I just started my third book. Awesome. Yeah. So I was able to close a deal with Simon & Schuster, and so this third book's going to be somewhat of a small collection of some of the concepts and ideas in these two, but on a much grander and more macro scale. There's going to be some great illustrations, some photos, just kind of like that next thing. I've got a nice chunk of change to work on it. Unfortunately, it is during the summer, so I'm trying to balance out that, like, all right, you need a couple days in the bush, and then you got to sit behind a computer and write. But I always bring something to jot notes or write things down when I head into the bush. So it will be kind of similar to how I did these two, just time in the bush, writing. That's kind of like that best.
You got to have a balance, right?
You got to, man. You've got to in everything. Otherwise, it's just the scales are sitting like this, and you're losing your mind. So.
Well, Simon & Schuster, that's a huge publication company, right?
Absolutely, yeah. These first two were self-published by me, and the idea was I just wanted my words to reign true. And, after some conversations with my book agent and how I wanted things to kind of play out, they were on board with it and totally psyched and ready to start rocking and rolling. So, yeah, it's a big deal. So I'm excited, and I hope I think probably within like the year, maybe next year, it will wind up being released. I got to get cracking on it, but I've got a lot of material already down, so it's coming along.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
The only reason I know of Simon and Schuster's, is Jack Carr. Are you familiar with him? Have you read any of his fiction novels?
Yeah.
Former SEAL.
Yeah.
We have some mutual friends, and I started with his first audiobook, The Terminal List, and now Amazon is making like a full TV series on it.
Oh, no kidding.
But his audiobooks are all done through, is it Ray Potter or something like that? You might have to look this up, Jeremy. But
yeah, he's a narrator.
He's a narrator, and he does like all these crazy voices, like accents, and
cool.
it's pretty cool. But those books are incredible for a fiction book. Like, I'm not a guy that really reads any type of fiction. When I say read, I'm listening to audiobooks.
For sure, yeah.
But these are gripping, man, and it's all about gear, and there's some pretty graphic stuff in it. It's a revenge story, So if you're into 1980s movies like Rambo or First Blood or like any of those type of old Schwarzenegger movies.
Oh, yeah. Those are classics. I think I grew up watching those, and I've been going down this rabbit hole with my girlfriend on 80s flicks. She's 29. She's seen a lot of them, but there's some that she hasn't seen. So we started with like some of the more gentler ones, like, Breakfast Club and like that series. And now we're getting into like Cobra with like Stallone and
the match in the mouth.
Oh man,
Come on,
it's classic.
Bro. Yeah.
I mean, everyone carried a match in their mouth for at least a month, and then your parents like, get that out of your mouth. Like, no, Mom, I need a match.
God, I'll never forget. Like, I was showing First Blood at like, I had to be like maybe 6, 7, 8 years old, and then the rest of the Rambo movies started to come out, but you could go buy the Rambo survival knife with like the compass on the back, and it had like a little bit of fishing line in it and a fishing hook.
Sure. Those were classics. I think everyone that saw.
It's a wonder nobody got killed.
Everyone was walking around, and then more importantly, you could go as Rambo as Halloween, just with like a red. Well, that was later on, but you just need like a military jacket and that knife, and you're like, I'm John Rambo.
Yeah. Why are you pushing me?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man, I love those movies.
Those are great.
It's crazy to think when you're 6, 7, 8, 9 watching all of those movies like nowadays. I mean, I let my kids watch them, like Welcome to the Real World, but so many kids are sheltered into some of those classic movies that I think have given shape to so much stuff that we, see today. I mean, just Rambo, Commando, Cobra's still one of my favorites with like the clashing battle axes.
Oh yeah, the serial killer guy was like,
that was awesome.
That was scary, man.
That was totally scary
when you were a kid. Yeah,
it was totally scary. But like all the Mad Maxes, like Beyond Thunderdome with Tina Turner, and who runs Bartertown. I was like, oh my god, I want to be running Bartertown. To be honest with you, it was just awesome movies.
No, those are great. And what's kind of cool about that same series that I was just telling you about, the Terminal List, is Sylvester Stallone's son is playing one of the SEALs or something, or like an operator or something.
Okay.
I think this is his first major acting role since. I think he did some of the Rocky movies, like later on, like the Rocky,
like
6 or something. But he was the actual kid, right?
Yeah, he was like, I think it was one with Tommy Gunn in it. Right. Yeah, and he was like, what about me, Dad? Yeah, man. Yeah, I'm gonna check it out. That sounds really good.
No, it'll definitely be good. And Jack, he'd be a great guy for you to catch up with, man.
Yeah.
He's got a podcast. With you being former military and what you do, I think he'd be super into talking.
Sweet, yeah,
he's just in Utah too.
Yeah.
Right
what's his podcast called? Danger
Close.
Danger Close. Yeah.
Danger Close. Right on.
Yeah, it's good.
Cool.
It's
I'll
good.
check it out.
Yeah, check him out. So now that we're done promoting Jack Carr, let's talk about your new TV show, man.
Yeah.
Like, I know we talked pretty in depth in the last one, but that was just between you and me. And so you're out there with, is it Ray Potter?
Ray Livingston.
Ray Livingston.
Yep.
Now I'm getting the Rays mixed up. Yeah, Ray Livingston.
Yeah. So I mean, Ray and I, we were both contestants on Alone season 6. I tapped out just due to medical stuff, and then he tapped out pretty much that next episode, and people liked our dynamic. We weren't really interacting obviously on Alone, but as cast members, they enjoyed that. And once 2019 kind of rolled in, got in touch with some production companies, and they were wanting to do something, and they'd like it to be a buddy cop sort of thing. And I was like, hey, Ray and I, during the orientation camp, prior to going out on alone, we got along really well. So I'm like, let's see how, this can kind of unfold. And before you know it, they, we had a TV show called Mud, Sweat, and Beards where, down and dirty, Ray and I would head out into the bush in these different environments and show folks not just survival methods and techniques and approaches, but how to actually live out there and enjoy it. It doesn't have to be all drama and hardship. You can have moments of joy and excitement and a lot of success, and I think for Ray and I that was just something we wanted to there you go, there's a photo of Ray right there. So the idea was to capture a different approach into survival, that it's not all doom and gloom, but it's quite enjoyable, and it's quite it's bond building. Ray and I built some good bonds out there, and we only did 4 episodes. We were scheduled to do 6. Right after one of our episodes, Ray sustained an injury, which eliminated us from doing the last 2 episodes. But production carried through with the 4 episodes, and they've been out on USA Network. Though I think they're on like Hulu Plus streaming, Amazon Plus streaming, so people can definitely watch them on there if you don't have USA Network. I know I didn't, but
I think we streamed them on some sort of platform, or it's probably Hulu or something.
Yeah. That's kind of the most.
I don't know. My kids found it right away. They were like, "What is it, Dad?"
Yeah, no, it was a fun show to make. I think the biggest thing for me was just being able to go to a whole new variety of places, like being able to go to Iceland and then being able to go to New Mexico. And I've been to New Mexico, Louisiana, and Alaska before, but every time you go to a new place, it's just a new environment, a new kind of like biome, if you will. So having spent time in Louisiana on another TV show, Alone the Beast, this was nice to go to a kind of a different location where I could build boats and make traps and just do a whole bunch of different things. So it's a fun show.
No, I really like the show. Right, I like the fact that there's not a lot of drama in it, and I like that would you call it camaraderie, I guess, of
absolutely.
Like being in a situation together, whether you're elk hunting or whatever it is, like those moments of hanging out in camp and the moments where you're giving each other shit or maybe you're helping them out or whatever it is, like those are the moments that I remember
and I think
the most of an experience,
Yeah, and I mean, you remembering them, I remember the ones, I've had personally, on my own and with people, but even on the show, people get to see that. They get to see us having fun and making jokes and cracking, jokes at each other, and me walking around with my pants off and Ray kind of giving me weird looks, and him having success, hunting and fishing in one place and then me having it in another. And not that it's like, these are my fish and you didn't provide, but like, hey man, like we're eating today. Like let's move beyond who got said name item to consume, but we're eating. And I think in a lot of those other survival shows that are out there where it's kind of duos or buddy cops, there's a camaraderie there, but there's also like, I'm the better fisherman, or I'm the better hunter, or I'm better at this. That's
right.
And
there's a bit of ego trip, right?
Yeah. And we didn't want to portray that to an audience because that's really not real. Like if you're out with your buddies and you're at elk camp and you're cooking up steaks or doing beers, that's not what I do at elk camp. But everyone's does their thing. You'll poke fun at your brothers and sisters that are out there with you, but them into a certain degree where it's like, remember that time you were hunting and you fell off that log, and it's that sort of stuff. And I think we just wanted to make sure that an audience that was going on this adventure and journey with us was going to be able to see how we connected and our genuine enjoyment for the outdoors and respect for the land and taking what we needed, even in those survival situations, not over harvesting things, because we knew we were out there for 10 days. So it's like, let's get our food, let's sustain for 10 days, and we'll use what we have. And if we need more, we'll go out and we'll approach it, as that case by case kind of comes up.
Sure. And one of the things I noticed on there is you guys would always build a shelter or some sort of cover, but at the end of every episode, you would tear it down. Yeah. Which I thought was cool that they showed that, because I think that's important, right? You don't want to leave.
Yeah, it's
you want to leave it like you found it,
and that's really the message. Yeah, like we came here, we resourced the land. Let's return what we can, and we know ultimately that environment will take back over. And even in Iceland, I mean, we tore up so much turf and built this huge kind of like Icelandic Viking styled house that it was like, man, we know we got to take this thing down. It's always easier coming down, but it's just one of those messages. So it's kind of like leave it better than you found it. And if you are in the natural environment and you set up a camp or you build a shelter or just pick up after yourself,
Right.
make it nice, because you don't live there permanently. There's some wild animal or somebody else might be roaming through there and they want to see it in its natural form. So that was our goal.
That's awesome. Now, when you're out, and I think we've talked about this on prior episodes, it might have been with you when we were talking about Alone, and the film crew, like, how are they living out there? Is it, because I think, was it one of the episodes you're like, oh, I can smell bacon and coffee coming around the corner. The camera crew must be here or something like that, right?
Yeah. So, Alone, again, that's all self-shot. There is a medical crew that comes out there and checks on you, but there's very, very little interaction. On Mud, Sweat, and Beards, we had an amazing camera crew. There was this gal, Erica, this guy, Jovan, and, they have a wealth of camera experience, like documentaries, working on the TV show Survivor, and just there's just a wealth of knowledge there. But, when night would fall, they would typically fall back to kind of like a little remote camp that was a couple miles out where a safety camp was. But they definitely had some food. Because, well, I don't know. Maybe. But I know, like, one morning in Louisiana, like, I swear I could smell, like, the bacon and eggs and the coffee. So I captured that on, like, a diary cam. And they just, of course, they would play that. But it was like... Right. They'd come in and they'd be like, all right, let's mic you up. And I'm like, just breathe on me. Yeah. Oh, that's black coffee. Thank you so much. And you're fueled for the day. But, it was a really good crew, the entire production out there. They lived through it all. In Alaska and in Louisiana, just the mosquitoes and the black flies. You get used to it when you're just working.
They call them the state bird there.
The state bird by far. There's millions of them. I took some video before going out, and I think it was just my face, and then held the camera up, and it was just black flies and mosquitoes all around, and they're in my beard and in my hair, and after a while I would just stand over the smoke.
You had some sort of like natural solve too, so like what was that concocted of? And,
how
can you make that?
So that was for Alaska, and I just, I've worked different insect and bug repellents in the past, but I just kind of took this concoction of like pine and garlic and lavender, a little bit of animal fats, I think some tea tree, and just I don't remember the exact recipe off the top of my head, but made it into this salve and was saying this is going to be one of the survival items and bring, because we could bring a couple items with us, and we always got to determine what it was. But for me, I was like, this is going to be
a good repellent.
It worked great. As you went throughout the day and you sweated and your hands were in the water, you'd have to reapply, but you could put it on, they would land and just fly right away. And you're like, this is perfect. That mixed with like just the smoke from the fire, you were golden.
Yeah.
You're really golden.
Oh, that's crazy. No, that's a good thing to have, because I always wonder, like when you're spraying off or something on you, it just feels like just pure chemicals, right?
It's all chemicals. Yeah. Yeah. I think once you get into an environment after a while, you start to like smell and emit that odor, and I know like mosquitoes are attracted to like, I think it's carbon dioxide or something to that extent, so there's no way you can 100% battle them, but what you can do is just find those things that give you a little bit of reprieve from the constant buzzing.
No joke. Yeah, especially up there, it's a whole nother level.
Yeah.
Like,
oh yeah,
I've only experienced it a couple times, but it was not, I was cursing a lot.
It's enough to say, what am I doing next time to prevent this? Yeah, absolutely.
No, it's funny you were talking about the film crew coming in, and the last time you were in, we were speaking, I had just started the carnivore diet. I think I was like 8 days in or something, right?
Yeah.
And you ponied up and you were like, dude, let's do it together. Yeah. So how's that going? Because that's been, I think I'm 43 days, so you got to be like 30 something.
30. Yeah, I've been doing really well at it. There's been a couple days with some sushi. I've had some rice, that sort of thing. But, it's just been straight meat. Fortunately, I was down in Texas this weekend, so there's plenty of brisket and stuff like that. So, I've been doing well at it. I think having done it before for a chunk of change and doing it this time, I was able to kind of tweak it. And this time I incorporated eggs into it. No dairy. I'm not a big dairy guy to begin with, but feeling good, sleeping good. No issues. I've been doing my blood pressure. Blood pressure's, right where it needs to be. I think I'm just looking now to diversify some of that meat intake, because it's next time we do this, you got to do it like right at the conclusion of a hunting season. So there's
100%. Yeah.
Because I mean,
dude, my freezers are almost gone just because I'm surprised how much I'm putting down.
Yeah.
Like it at first, like you said the last time, because you had done this before, like for 30 days.
Yeah, it was 30 days, just kind of a self experiment.
Right.
I was just ravenous in the beginning.
I was too, like eating so much. Like, I think it's just because your body's going through that withdrawal of all that bullshit that you're used to like putting in it. So it's like
cutting out the
it
sugars.
wants some sort of substance, right?
Yeah.
But now that I'm like 40 days in, I'm basically intermittent fasting. Like I can go 24 hours without eating and it's not an issue. Like I'm not hungry. Like the last time I ate was yesterday at 4:00. It's now 11 o'clock and I don't even have a hunger as long as I'm hydrated.
Yeah, that's the key with any like fasting or even just this sort of diet thing, is staying hydrated.
Yeah.
Because it flushes the system, and then it's like, all right, almost preparing your body, saying, all right, when are we getting that next chunk of flesh?
Right.
And then, putting it down, you're like, all right, we're good for a while. Because I think it's all the carbs and the sugars and all that sort of stuff that just, I don't know, it just throws off the system. I know if I eat like a bowl of pasta, my body just feels it. I just feel kind of.
I'm so scared to try anything now. Like anything. Like I've been pretty by the book. There were a couple times. It was really hard when I was traveling because I was gone for almost 2 weeks and I was in Boston and San Francisco and all these big cities. And like, it's kind of funny because I was cooking in the hotel room.
Yeah.
In the first hotel I was in, I was only in for like 3 days and it was like a mini apartment, right? So it had a stove top and I brought a little George Foreman, thanks to your recommendation. And thank you for the biltong recommendation.
Right?
That's fucking saved me, man. That stuff is awesome.
Just an easy snack.
I got to order some more. Yeah. That was great. But I was cooking in the hotel room like New York strip steak. I was eating good, but like my room smelled so bad. Dude. The maids had to be like, what the hell is he starting a Tasqueria in here? Like it was bad. And then finally I kind of figured out like, okay, if I do... I found out certain places that I could go and certain ways to order. Like, please don't put any sauces or any seasonings or any. I just want the meat on a plate. That's it. Yeah.
And sometimes
people
get
would look at you like, what the? Fuck? Like, you don't want any mashed. No, and everybody's still trying to like. It's so weird trying to force feed you that. Like, Chipotle was one of my go-tos, and I know you're not really supposed to have seasoning and stuff, but I found that like their steak it felt
dry.
It's dry, but it's just. At least it's steak. It was some sort of form of protein. If I only had 30 minutes to pound something, like that was my last resort. But even there, they're all grabbing spoons and just trying to like, you sure you don't want some guac? It'd be great on the carne asada. But yeah, I mean, I feel great, man. I think I'm down. Last time I checked, like 35 pounds or something like that, and 40 some days.
That's good.
I know. You're not really supposed to watch the scale. I got a doctor helping me out with it and stuff like that. So I noticed my muscle mass has gone through the roof. Yeah, a little bit. And I just feel better. Energy, inflammation, like
it's gone.
Yeah, because I used to, some of those rock shows that we do, you're on your feet on concrete for 20 hours a day or something, or on, and it's brutal. And sometimes it's ice, sometimes it's over the top of a hockey arena. So that, and I used to get inflammation like crazy. And I've noticed it. I was up in the woods yesterday doing a little bit of elk scouting and looking for some sheds and shooting our bows and stuff. It was awesome. There's a ton of snow out there.
Yeah.
But yeah, even then, like normally I would come back from hiking pretty heavy. Like I think we did, I don't know, a couple thousand feet of climbing and quite a few miles, like 6 miles or something total yesterday. And I don't feel any of it today. Like I feel good.
I think when you cut all the crap out, I mean, your body's like in its natural form. I mean, like in its natural processing, how it's supposed to be. And I think, personally, based on, just some of my own experiences, it's like the right thing to do. It's not saying what, eating a slice of pizza, and we, earlier used the word cheat, like cheating on this. And I'm like, well, you know what? I don't want to ever use that word because then it makes it feel absolutely horrible. but it's like, you know what you're doing. So if you want to have a sliced pizza, by all means. If you want to have a burger with a bun, by all means.
Sure.
You know, it's not cheating. It's more or less just acknowledging, all right, I'm trying to do this, and you know what? Today I'm going to do this because of certain circumstances, whatever the case may be.
To me, it was cheating. I had to have a little cheese on it just to break up the monotony, because I was like, I can't eat this dry steak again from like, you know, Chipotle or something. So I had them sprinkle a little bit of cheese on it, like
an egg. I always use an egg for
it's
I
great.
Do like a burger, some sort of patty or anything to, you know, that's a meat base, and I'll throw an egg on it because then it breaks up a little bit of the. Yeah. I know it's just not meat, but for this, the first time I did it was just straight meat. This one I'm like, I gotta have.
Okay, no, I can't do that. I gotta have some variety. So like, I try to do wild game for a couple days, and then I'll eat a fatty, like ribeye or something, you know, on that third day just to get in. Yeah. Some extra calories and some goodness, and the game meat's been awesome. But you know what I noticed was, if I just eat eggs, I don't feel that great. Yeah. And if I eat like poultry, it doesn't like bother me at all, but I don't feel satisfied. Yeah, it's different. If I eat burger, I'm kind of like, yeah, it's good. Like burgers, I feel all right. Yeah. But steak, awesome. And then wild game is even the next level to where it like, I don't know, cognitively it's changing me too. I think I feel more like razor sharp focused and maybe a little more testy, you know, like. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I feel pretty fortunate because I'm going to actually restock my my freezer here soon. I'm doing a Bison experiment with CU Boulder again. And
we're going to dive into that here in a minute. Yeah, that's one of the most interesting things I think we've done. We touched on it last time, but we didn't really get into detail. But I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no. So, I mean, one of the beautiful outcomes of this is large amounts of bison meat. So I'm just going with coolers and just, you know, after everything's said and done, we've gotten all the data and all the research and everything to that extent. It's just filling coolers with tongues and just, you know, heart and liver and all this beautiful cuts of meat. So I'm excited. So I'm like, that's going to happen, I think, in the next like week or two. So so it's awesome. Like, all right, here we go. Back to some good bison. And having done it, you know, like 2 years ago, I mean, with two boys, we ran through all of that bison meat.
It's crazy.
Like,
I mean, like my family's run through what we have pretty quick, you know, like, yeah, it's amazing. It's
part of the game, you know.
What are you doing for salts? Like, because I know that's a big thing with this diet is you have to have at least, you know, your 2,000 milligrams of salt intake, or you can get super sick, right?
Yeah, you can definitely become, you know, sodium deficient, which is an issue. If I'm feeling like I am losing a lot of salts, more importantly, when I, you know, go to the bathroom and I take a pee, I make sure I'm not like hyponatremic, meaning that my urine is completely clear, and if it's completely clear, I'm flushing all those minerals and salts out. So I've incorporated probably on a daily basis just a little bit of salts into some of the meats just to supplement where it's going. Some of the game meats, I mean, I'm completely flushed out. I have nothing left, but if it was the case, squirrels and things like that, they got a good salt content, especially in their organ meats. Like, I mean, it's small little livers.
So there's a little bit of salt content in animals naturally, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, they all take salt. I mean, all mammals need salt, so they're going to have some of it there. I just know the more you cook it, the quicker you'll process out the salt.
I'm going to hook you up with some of these. Remind me before you leave. You can take this with you, but this is that supplement that I was telling you about last time.
Yeah.
And I really like it, and it's a paleo keto type friendly deal, but it's Element.
Okay.
But yeah, check these out. They have there's a bunch of different flavors in there, but I do like 2 of those a day, and like my go-to at night, and this was a suggestion by Sean Baker, the doctor that's helping me out, is I'll put them in like a NutriBullet.
Oh, okay.
And just make like a big slushy, and it feels like I'm sitting there eating sorbet. It's fucking awesome. Right. So
I'll try that out.
Yeah, and they have like, those aren't all spicy ones in there. There's some other ones in there that you can have. I think there's
right on, man. No,
like
I appreciate
a raspberry and a citrus and some more like normal flavors. I'm not crazy about the
chocolate salt.
Yeah, get the fuck out of here with that, man. Like, give me some real chocolate, you know? But it's funny, I was texting with Jeremy the other day, and he's like, man, how's it going? Because we haven't seen each other in, a couple of weeks? Something like that.
Yeah, you've been on the road.
Yeah, I've been on the road. You've been on the road. And, what did you text me the other night? It was something like, hey, how's it going? Or you sent me something, and I was like, oh, I feel like I could do he sent me a video of this savage man, Sean Baker, like carrying a 100-pound kettlebell up his driveway and doing a kettlebell swing like every 5 steps or something for 5 miles or something ridiculous like that, right? And I was like, it was 9 o'clock or 9:30 at night, and I was like, I feel like
I could do it.
I could do that right now. I'm so pissed off that all I want is one potato chip.
I'm reading it right now. I feel like I could do the same thing right now, but I'm so pissed off. All I want is a fucking potato.
I found out that is the one, like this one thing that made me realize how much I like just a potato chip or something crunchy and salty, you know?
I mean,
it's not really sugar for me, but
I think it's one of those things. Once you level out and you balance out, you can probably find those points of like, where's my go-to in this sort of situation, whether it's potato chip or a slice of pizza or a bowl of pasta. I don't know. I found just my time out in the in the mountains and various places that when it's there, when you have the option of like reaching for it or jumping in your car and going to it, sometimes you exercise those options. But when you're completely isolated and there are no options, you're like, man, I'd love this. And it's not going to happen. So let's redirect and kind of go somewhere else. But I mean, it's case by case.
Yeah, I guess that's the hard part is I have young kids at home. So they have all that sort of stuff around. Like my daughter the other day, we went on a little vacation. We went to this hotel and they found Captain Crunch berries. Discovered them for the first time. We don't keep like sugary stuff in the house.
Yeah.
So somehow Dad bought a box of them, right? Like just
nice.
And my daughter asked me to make her a bowl, and I opened up the bag, and as I opened it, like just like the cameraman, you almost want to grab him. And that smell, I swear I stuck my face in the box and just did a big old huff. Like,
your childhood returned. Yeah, man. Getting high off crunch berries.
No, it's crazy, like having all that around. But for me, I think more about this diet or this journey or whatever is more about the endurance and the mental fortitude for me to make it 90 days.
Yeah, man.
So I
You're
think
almost
that I'm getting there halfway, right? So no, and I feel good, and I don't know what I'll go back to, but I'm gonna try it. But my blood, like you said, my blood pressure. If I show you a chart, it's staggering.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. I mean, blood pressure in a lot of males specifically. I mean, we're the biggest ones that like overlook a lot of like heart-related diseases and like weight. We just kind of take it accustomed to like, well, it's hard to go to the gym or it's hard to this. Like I personally I don't ever go to the gym. I'm not a gym guy, but I know my physical activity balances that out in proportion to what I do. So I just kind of say, all right, this is how you can go about obtaining a certain level of fitness just by maintaining your normal pattern of life. And like, I think when you take a step back and you look and say, all right, all the crap we put in our body, is it fuel? Like, what does it serve? If it's boredom, if it's like, oh, I just need to grab something so I'm not hungry, we kind of play into our own kind of mind of saying, I need this because I've been told this, and this is how I've been conditioned. This is how, we as a people have been conditioned to eat these certain types of foods because it's just what we're told to do. From school, you get breakfast, lunch, dinner, you get your snacks in between.
Remember the triangle with the loaf of bread at the top?
It's like, it's totally, and I get it, when families are, when they're families are growing up and, you're a young kid, kids consume so much food, but I also think it's like the food that they're consuming is probably giving them problems later on in life.
100%.
It's easy to eat mac and cheese. It's easy to eat those things, but like if you teach your kids probably very early on to eat certain vegetables and certain things like that, you'll be good to go. I know my youngest son, well, when we moved to Japan, we were living in a culture where there wasn't a lot of fast food. There wasn't those options, and he was very much, he never had a French fry probably until the age of 5, but it was always eating fresh fruits and nut butters and different sorts of cheeses, and he just had a very bananas, just a very very good diet. As soon as we came back to the States, I don't know if it was in the air or in the water or what it was, but like it just flipped because those things weren't part of that normal pattern of life there.
So readily available.
Yeah, we could pull fish right out of the water and then we would eat it. So I think the environment you're in also dictates a lot of how you consume food. And I think for me, acknowledging that with heart-related issue and just my own personal pattern of life, it's like there's nothing wrong with going to Topgolf with the kids and having a good time. Sure. But that can't be a constant because how you feel the next day, and with age and so on and so forth, you're like, all right, once in a while, special occasions, that sort of thing.
And
but
you especially, right? Because you had a Widowmaker at age was 37 or something like that, right?
30,
yeah, I remember talking to you about that, and that's frightening. I mean, I lost I believe it was my grandfather's dad. I think it was a Widowmaker. Like he died pretty young, like I think he was in his 40s.
Yeah.
Or something, and heart disease runs in my family because of that. Like I've had uncles that are not super old, and they've had heart attacks and
it can happen.
Strokes, all that sort of stuff. So that's why I'm being a little bit more conscious about it too. It's like
I think water with a good diet, you can't go wrong.
Yeah.
Water and the occasional libation here and there, but just your body's a machine, it needs fuel, it needs lubricants, it needs all those good things. And I think unfortunately, like 90% of the health industry is just, it's all bullshit, man. Right. It's all playing into these things with like, you got to eat raw this, you got to eat raw that, you can only eat these many things. And it's just like, you're overdoing it. You're taking something that is a pretty simple concept of just like good nutrition. Even the vegetables we eat they're not even real vegetables. Yeah. Broccoli doesn't exist. Lettuce is the worst thing for you. Half the weeds people kill in their yards are more nutritious.
Well, and that was one thing I wanted to ask you is, with I guess you're as close to a paleo person as you could get, Donny. Like right. The amount of time that you spend in the wilderness, doing your own foraging, hunting, your knowledge, the scientific studies that you've done with universities. And I think you brought this up at one point. It might have been the last time we were talking about the difference between like maybe what a paleo person was eating. And I guess if you would base it around a paleo diet, whatever. I don't like to call diets diets, right?
Yeah.
Like
lifestyle, you know?
Sure.
I think like, cultures long ago, they weren't eating broccoli, lettuce, and asparagus and, cauliflower rice and junk like that. Right. They were eating tubers. I mean, all plants are designed for defense. Like they're meant to pollinate, and then they're also designed to defend themselves against, animals that would eat them, deer, elk.
And this is what made the most sense to me. So yeah.
So it's like, why would that be nutritious for us? Why would we alter those things where they have these different chemicals and receptors in them where it's designed to not give us any benefit? I mean, how many women eat salads every single day and they're like, I'm trying to lose weight? And it's like, well, it's probably, salad probably isn't helping you,
right?
Especially with, half a bottle of ranch on there. But my point is like vegetables, tubers are different than like leafy greens. Some leafy greens will provide you with different, compounds for nutrition, but in their truest and rawest form, they're designed to defend themselves against things that would potentially eat them.
From the topsoil.
Right? From the top.
So like below the soil, you're saying is probably
a lot better.
Yeah.
I mean, most of the things that provide some sort of nutrition, if you look at like potatoes, radishes, carrots, things like that, they've been modified and altered over the years, but tubers in general is where all the nutrients are. That's where the ground is, the roots are soaking things up and the nutrients, and that's where you're going to get that nutrition from. So even when I'm out in the bush and I'm foraging, I'm always looking for more tubers. I'm not saying something like a stinging nettle or different leaves won't provide something, but what I'm really looking for in that capacity is moisture, almost not like rehydration.
Of some substance, right?
Substance. Yeah. And then tubers, and then mushrooms are another, great thing to consume, as well as any of your little fleshy critters that exist.
Right.
And I think ancient cultures weren't focusing on the greens. They were focusing on the things that they could keep during winters. And it's far easier to keep greens, tubers, like
they last longer.
Because they last longer. You could almost keep them in the ground in a certain way, or find like some sort of cooling mechanism, or drying meats. I think a lot of the leaves that exist have different medicinal properties, and when dried out and steeped in teas or worked into poultices, things to that extent, tinctures even, you might get a different result, or kind of whatever you're trying. Because, for example, my girlfriend, I came back from the Amazon. I had a major parasite inside me, and I'm not going to go to the doctor. She's like, I got something for you. Whipped up a tea, and within like 3 days, parasite was gone.
Really?
Yeah. So I mean, she knows her stuff when it comes to like medicinal plants and things like that. But I also know that like if you were to eat some of those things directly, you might have a good, might impact you properly, but it's all about how it works.
Isn't there something with like cashews or something? Like if you eat raw cashews, or it can kill you or something? You might have to look this up, Jeremy.
Sure, yeah.
So there's something weird like that where it's like, I think raw cashews can kill you or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, if
I mean,
they're
we don't know.
processed,
Yeah, I mean, who knows? I
yeah.
mean, but I know, like, even in the Amazon, I found a Brazil nut tree and saw a huge Brazil nut the size of a football, opened it up and ate those Brazil nuts raw, and they tasted completely different compared to the stuff you get in the
I'm sure,
Planters, peanuts, mixed nut thing sort of thing. But it's like, that's how I would like to eat those. That's how I would like to eat a lot of different things. And we have those options. It's just sometimes, they're not available routinely.
What's your take on fruit? You think? Because I'm thinking about adding some berries back in after this 90 days. I think that's the first thing that I'm going to try to reintroduce.
Fruit's a must.
Yeah.
Fruit is designed for animals to consume it and then expel the seeds to, I mean, if you think about the functions of things, a fruit is littered with seeds. So with those seeds, most animals dine on those fruits. When fruits are ripe, they drop to the ground to respread their seeds and, germinate, so on and so forth. And animals consume them and distribute them throughout a landscape. So fruits, in my opinion, and based off the things that I've read, are perfectly designed to consume and redistribute, So berries, apples, a lot of the things. I mean, even like the lemons that we eat today are not.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I mean, everything that you're saying, it's
shells
like
are,
common sense.
The shells have an oil on them that
okay.
it's not going to kill you.
Oh, okay. I thought it was like there's so much misinformation out there. I'm sure you can Google whatever you want and not
exactly.
get accurate information, but
No, some oil, it'll give you like a poison ivy type thing.
okay.
Some like skin rash or blister. Right there.
So when it comes to foraging, Donny,
Yeah.
I know it's dependent on the environment. We've talked about that. Like, what are some of your go-tos? Are those just tubers and stuff like that, or is it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely a fan of nettles, stinging nettles.
Uh-huh.
It's pretty good. A lot of your docks have good, yummy leaves, but I always contribute those to they're like fillers. You're getting something from them, but it's not like the same as eating,
It's not like a bison backstrap.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. But I mean, a lot of your docks, like burdock has a really thick tuber to it, which you could actually slice up like a potato in certain ways. So there's different benefits from the leafy side. I wouldn't say too many, but there's a lot more in those tubers. So if there's an opportunity to harvest some sort of tuber in that capacity, I'll go for it. The great thing about that is that not a lot of animals scavenge tubers. Some do, some don't. They'll eat the roots. They'll eat the base of something to get at that connection point between the stalk comes out of the ground and that tuber that's in the ground. But those are the sort of things that I look for. I mean, one of the most popular ones I think is some of the dandelion root roasted over some coals. A lot of your docks. Those things in themselves just provide you with a crunch. They provide you with some more like carbohydrates, and it's the good things that you really want to focus on when you're out there. More importantly, I mean, we get some pretty decent berries out here. So all the
Awesome berries.
Yeah,
though.
all the-
wild raspberries.
Oh my God.
I turned my kid onto it, and now I'm worried he's going to fall off of a cliff trying to get to
grab
something. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, like berries, all of those things are hand to mouth. So when you think about like some of the ancient cultures that existed, they would definitely hunt. They would definitely go through that process. I mean, that's where they knew their energy, their proteins, and that kind of connection to the land would come from. But also, if you're out like eating berries, I mean, you're still getting food, and I can guarantee you the sugar.
That's food on the go,
Yeah,
man.
it's food
That's
on
like
the go.
a convenience store right
Easy
there.
reward.
Yeah.
They know where the berries are, and if they eat the berries before they go on their hunt to get that little burst of sugar and energy and then go out and hunt something, I mean, it makes sense. A lot of guys and hunters and gals and anglers do that today. They're like, all right, I'm going out for the day. I'm going to do this meal. I'm going to take, these protein bars or an epic bar or something that's going to get that burst of energy. Yeah. It's going to get me through. And then when I crash that evening, I know I'm going to sleep well.
That's what I got to figure out for September, what my plan is going to be, because I'll be well into the 90 days by then, but I need to come up. I need to do some like testing.
Epic bars. You ever heard of epic bars?
I use Epic beef tallow to cook in,
Okay.
which is awesome.
Yeah.
And I think I've had like they have like a bison bar or an
they
elk
got
bar or something.
They're I like
But
them.
they're along the lines of biltong. Like there's no bullshit in them. Or
Yeah,
is it?
they're pretty clean. And what I actually enjoy doing is cutting them up and cooking them over a fire. So you can eat them as they are, but there's some good fats in there, and I just like to cook them up over the fire. It tastes a little bit more meaty, a little bit more steak-like, and there's different flavors. And I mean, I'm not sponsored or repped by them or anything. I just know that I like to pack those out. More importantly, my dog can also eat them as well. So if you got a companion out there, what can they also eat? You know, aside from making my own.
How's
jerky.
Finn, by the way?
He's doing good. Yeah.
Awesome.
He was doing good. He did have a parasite the same exact time I had
damn.
one, but he came through, no issues. He was eating a raw deer leg.
Okay.
That's his jam.
It happens.
Yeah.
No, one of our sponsors on it has been great.
Yeah.
They've been with us since the beginning, and they make something that's very similar to the Epic Bar. It's called a Warrior Bar,
Okay.
and it's bison, and I think they have an elk one. And they mix a little bit of fruit in it with like some cranberries and stuff.
Yeah.
They're super good, man.
Okay.
I was crushing those last season, but I need to look at the sugar content and stuff on them and make sure.
Yeah. I really think like just
At that
making
point,
your own.
though, when you're running around at,
You're burning.
11.5
That's what I
or
mean.
10,000 feet or something.
It's gone like
yeah.
that. And I think a lot of those bars work very, very well, but I also say, what are you doing with it? You know what I mean? If you are out hunting at 12 grand, something like that, I mean, you're killing calories and you're burning
insane.
everything. Even if it's like the calories that like your fuel calories compared to like stored fat, something like that. Yeah, you're going to burn those up right away. So, I mean,
Grouse.
yeah, snacks on the go, breast them and eat them. Yeah. I mean, I think everyone just has to kind of find what works well for them. I think those Epic bars work pretty well for me. My own jerkies, biltongs, things like that. But
No, thanks for turning me on to that, dude. That was a game changer for me.
tastes good. Right?
Yeah.
It's really good, and it's an easy. Like you're not like gnawing on a piece of dry jerky. It's
Right.
moist. It's got some flavor. It's all that strive built
That's awesome.
on.
Jeremy's got these Warrior bars
Okay.
pulled up. But yeah, check
Oh,
those
I've
out.
seen
Those are
those.
pretty good.
I've seen those.
I think they sell them at Whole Foods and
Yeah.
stuff like that. And you can get them if you go to our website. I think you get a discount on
right
some
on.
stuff or something. But yeah, they're pretty good. I enjoyed them.
Right on. Yeah, I'll grab some. I think those are the things like that's the snack you should be eating. That with like a banana or even some sort of apple or
Apple and peanut butter was always my jam too.
Yeah,
that
love
fit in the
that.
bag, and that was some
Yeah.
quick calories.
yeah, like fruit leathers. You ever make like fruit leathers?
No.
You just take fruit, you puree it.
Oh, like peaches or pears or something
yeah,
like
you
that.
you just puree it until it's like a liquid, and then you put it on a dehydrator, and it's just a fruit leather.
Oh,
It's
there
like
you go.
it's like a fruit
roll up
but
or
like
something.
minus
Okay.
the 100
No, I'm
grams
thinking of
sugar.
like dried fruit sometimes too.
Yeah, dried
like the I forget what they call it. You got to watch it though, because like if you get like dried pineapple,
It's no good.
that's just pure sugar.
Yeah,
and it
makes
is
sense.
like pure sugar.
Yeah, I mean, like in the mornings, my youngest boy loves like a smoothie, so I'll add like pineapple, mango, bananas, some apples and berries, and I'll put some collagen and maybe some like reishi mushroom dried in there. I give him one of those, and he is like ready to go for the day. It's like incorporating that like normal diet into like, all right, you know what, you should have a smoothie. Now my oldest boy doesn't like to eat breakfast. He's 16. He's like, I'm not really hungry. He's lean and mean and tall, but he's like, he eats like one big meal. So if I, were to cook chicken or steaks or some sort of meat, and there's 8 pieces of chicken cooked, my girlfriend will eat a half of one. I'll eat maybe 1 into 2. My middle boy will, he'll just destroy. He'll be like,
Crush it,
does anybody else want anything? We're like, no. He's like, I'll eat the remainder 4. And I'm like, oh my god. But he's
That's how I feel on this
Yeah.
diet. Like when I say intermittent fast or intermittent fasting, but it's really intermittent feasting because like my daughter loves tri-tip. So I'll smoke it on the Traeger for like close to 2.5 hours until it reaches a temperature. Like I slow cook it at like 165.
right on.
And put a probe in it and then just watch the temperature, and as soon as it gets to like 110,
Yeah,
I pull it off and wrap it in foil.
right on.
And then I've been this time I basted it in beef tallow, just because it's kind of dry, it kind of
Yeah.
gets that dry crust. And then crank that grill up to like 500 degrees and just sear it until it reaches, like 130, 135, and then
Yeah.
pull it off and put it in a little Yeti cooler.
Right on.
like that one I got around the corner,
Yeah.
and let it sit in there
Sick.
for 20 minutes, and then you pull it out, and it's still piping hot.
That's
And
good
so,
to go.
oh man, yeah, I'll cook you one next time
Yeah,
you come
man.
up. We'll
Let's
do that.
it.
But
Well, I think I'm gonna.
I crushed almost a whole tri-tip the other night, dude.
Not wrong.
Between me and her, it didn't even make it off the cutting board.
Oh man,
so,
that's the best way to do it. Doesn't make
Yeah.
it to a plate.
Yeah.
I'm with this new place I'm going into. I'm gonna get a grill, and I was curious, like Traeger.
Traeger, 100%.
What about that green egg thing? Have you heard anything about that?
People swear on those
Yeah.
things. For me, the Traeger's super simple
Yeah.
because you just plug it into a wall and you pour these little wood pellets into like a hopper.
Yeah.
And I was a little concerned about it until they actually became a sponsor, and I started reading up on to
okay.
do some of the host read advertisements and that. So the wood that you put in there, like what you'd put in a pellet stove.
Like a wood pellet.
Yeah, but it's specifically from Traeger.
Okay.
And they're all natural. So they use like the saps and stuff from the tree. So it's not like a chemical type thing, right?
Really?
Like I was a little concerned about that. And you can dial them up to like, I think that mine goes up to like 500 degrees or something. And you can bake on them. I mean, they hold temperature really well. And above and beyond that, they have an app that hooks up to your phone. Now, this is not primitive by any means.
That's right. It's
But like, so when I was smoking that tri-tip the other day, I forgot where I had to go. Oh, I went out and like walked the dog. I was doing some work to my truck, so I had to run out and like I had to pick up my son from his soccer.
Yeah.
So I just left the grill on, and you can control it from your phone. So it'll tell you what the meat probe is. It'll send you an alarm.
no kidding.
There's a bunch of recipes. Like they have their own app.
Okay.
And yeah, you can control the grill temperature. I can turn it off and on from there.
It's like a whole system.
So I can be away from home and see like, oh, I better turn off the tri-tip. It's at, it's smoked to 110 degrees or whatever,
Not too technical.
Super easy.
All right.
Super easy. Yeah.
All right.
And the different ways that you can cook on it too is
Yeah.
pretty amazing. And they got a bunch of wild game recipes.
Cool.
They have, I've taken a few things from there. They have some specific pellets for cooking game. That's
Okay.
really good. That's how I cook my elk and deer.
Right on.
Is I put it on there and slow cook it, and then I have a cast iron pan and
Sear it out.
sear it in some
on.
beef tallow. So
I think that's the direction I'm going to go. My girlfriend's been like Traeger.
this is
Traeger.
cooking. This is turned into the cooking and consumption show by Donny and Bobby.
But I think it's
So important though.
Yeah,
right?
man. I'll tell you what, especially if you get some good cuts of meat. I mean, you just want to do it right.
Yeah, let me know. I'll put you in touch with Traeger because somebody
Yeah.
like you,
Yeah,
it
I'll-
would make sense to give you a free product there, right?
Yeah, it's just one
You
of
never
those.
know.
Yeah, well,
Reach out, yeah.
I'm open to anything, but I think it's having been I've been in this real small little place just for when my kids have been around, and now it's like, all right,
Yeah.
we'll get some good equipment to really cook the meat the right way. Because we do, but I have like a small smoker, but aside from like smoking trout and salmon and stuff,
There's something about cooking over a campfire too.
Oh man, that's the only way. I'll tell you what. That's
Like stuff just tastes better when you're at camp. you
on
know,
the
like-
coals.
Yeah.
cooking on the coals.
That's the only way to cook,
that's
right?
my jam.
Like, yeah. No, that's awesome. I really enjoy that too. But there's effort that goes into that. You gotta like this thing. You just literally, it's a little digital dial, and you open the app on your phone, and
Just
you can change the grill temperature from your phone. It's pretty sweet.
Sold.
Yeah,
Done.
But there's a lot of other brands out there too. I mean, they're one of our sponsors here, but there's a ton of other brands out there that I think are comparable to them too. But I would recommend a Traeger. You can call up Salt Lake if you're having a problem. Like
Really?
when I was setting it up, I was trying to figure out like, hey, I don't want to fuck this thing up. And, And yeah, you can call Salt Lake and they'll pick up the phone and talk to you. So
pretty good.
that's kind of cool.
Customer service.
I always enjoy that aspect of it. So Bison, this is a bucket list hunt for me, right? Like,
Right on.
and because I'm on this carnivore diet and it's going so well, and I've typically, I try to kill an elk. Didn't get one last season. Harvested a couple deer this year, doe, buck, and but I've eaten through most of that already, and we're only halfway through the year, not even, and so yeah, I'm considering like as much as it pains me, and I don't want to. I've never outfitted a hunt.
Yeah.
Like I was thinking about because a bison hunt is so hard to draw a tag, number one, like to go into Wyoming or something like that and actually hunt them where they're, I don't even know if you would call them wild up there. It's not really, not like free range bison like it used to be.
Yeah, well, I think there's actually kind of a misnomer with that. A lot of the bison farms, they don't do anything to them. Okay. They basically have them and they house them in these, large swaths of land. But the bison are still, and this is just based on my interactions with some of these bison farmers, is that they don't give them any sort of
they're still mean as shit.
Still mean as anything. They still circle up if like a vehicle comes around. So I mean, maybe aside from what you see in like Yellowstone where they're walking along the side of the road, but these bison farms up north, they don't do anything to them. Absolutely nothing, because they can't get to them. They're still kind of in that, that primal state, if you will. So I think a lot of the bison meat that, a person might hunt or harvest is as it is. There's nothing into it.
Well, I think that's one of the things is I was going to look into, like, basically booking a hunt on a ranch or something just so I can get the meat, because I'd rather do that than go buy a bunch of beef or, the last thing I want to do is go to the grocery store and buy a bunch of cellophane wrapped in styrofoam steaks, which you got to do every once in a while.
Yeah. Everyone does it.
But yeah, I'm thinking about booking that, but I wanted to talk to you specifically because you got the opportunity to process a bison the most primitive way you possibly can.
It was awesome.
We touched on it, and I don't know why I didn't fucking dive into elaboration, because
no, it's all good.
What you do is so amazing. For people that don't follow you, you're a napper. You make these incredible stone tools. You've made us some amazing pieces. This is the most talked about subject when people come into the podcast, is they see these stone tools, and first off, they think that they're found. And I'm like, nope, my buddy Donny made those. And then the challenge coins are always a big one there too. But yeah, no, those are some of my most prized possessions, man. Like I've said, like, you can break in here and steal all the studio equipment and shit, but that is the one thing that gets locked up when I go out of town. Like, I lock it in that file cabinet over there. So, now I gave the secret away. I'm going to have to get a safe, bolt it to the floor, because those are irreplaceable, and they mean a lot to me because you made them. Man. But a university reached out to you, and I can't remember which one, to do a study on primitive hunting, Atlatl specific, right? And bison. Yeah. And then also, to take it a step further, processing a bison with stone tools.
Absolutely. Yeah, if you actually go to I don't know if you can go to the stories on there. The first experiment was about 2 years ago, and the idea was to take a cow that had given birth to, I think it was like 20 plus calves, and essentially this is the current experiment. That's me throwing an Atlatl at a target.
That is awesome.
Yeah. It's
so for people that are just listening to this right now, Donny is throwing an Atlatl. Was it a dart? Is that
so that's the dart is the long arrow looking thing, and then I'm holding the Atlatl in my hand, and essentially it gives you leverage, mechanical advantage.
Look at the flex in that thing.
Yeah, the dart is designed to flex, and it helps it travel and fly throughout the air. And the goal is, if you go back one or two on the story, one more right there, it's understanding the terminal ballistics of Stone Age hunting projectiles. And Dr. Devin Pettigrew, who's also known as AR Atlatl on Instagram, him and we linked up a couple years ago, and it was all about throwing these darts at various animals. And
I guess let's reel it back, because this is something that intrigues me too. And I think a lot of people probably don't know what an Atlatl is. They understand what a bow and arrow is. That's a pretty staple weapon, and has been around for a long time. But the Atlatl was kind of before the bow, right?
Yeah, it was definitely our first projectile, major hunting weapon. And it would take, stone points like this size, put it on the tip of an Atlatl, and then throw it into megafauna. So like large bison and mammoth and things to that extent, ground sloth, so on and so forth. And there's always been a lot of controversy in, did man basically exterminate all of these animals? Because when we came to the Americas, there was no people here. Was it even possible? What is the full capabilities of certain stone points on megafauna? And we still have megafauna that exists today. You think of elephants, rhinos, giraffes, And bison in North America is that closest, brother or sister to the ancient bisons that roam this land. So the idea is to test the ballistics and the capabilities of the stone points making entry into the animals. And the first experiment was up in Lolo, Montana. We got a bison and we threw, I think, like 200 plus Atlatl darts with different size stone points into it to test how far they would go in based off the dart size, the thrower, and then where it was actually hit on the target. So taking a 4-inch stone point on, let's say a 6-foot dart, me throwing it at a bison profile and throwing it all the way through the bison. So where the 6-foot dart travels all the way through the actual bison.
That's a lot of penetration.
Oh, it's a lot of penetration. At a given distance, you could draw some conclusions and different kind of ideas and concepts. So with the various stone points and all the throws, Dr. Devin Pettigrew, he came up with a lot of different kind of theories, and there were some questions in it. So we're not redoing the experiment, we're testing a couple different things, and one thing is the capabilities of the throwers. So for me, on this experiment, I'm going to be throwing all of the heavy darts. So you take like the basket maker culture, which was one culture that existed. They threw a very short dart, like maybe 4.5, maybe 5 feet max, and that's with a foreshaft and then the actual stone point. You take some of the ancient Paleo Indians that came over across the land bridge. They were throwing 8-foot long darts with, 8 to 9 inch stone points that are
archaeologists. I can't say that word.
Archaeologists.
Jeez, this shows how smart I am. They can track all that just from my past, because this is something that's always intrigued me, because I found arrowheads when I'm out elk hunting and stuff like that, which is pretty cool, because if you find one, you're like, you're kind of in the same spot, same migration pattern that
awesome.
A native was maybe, right? Or something like that.
Absolutely.
And, there's different like blood grooves and stuff in it that where they can tell like the time period, right? And the age of the stone. And
yeah. So you can't necessarily tell the age of the stone, because the stone that exists today existed thousands of millions of years ago. What they're actually looking at is the overall shape of the point, and the shapes of the points are also indicative of what, just like we would use various tips on arrows and rounds today. So the shape of the point, what the points were made out of, and then how they were actually connected to some sort of shaft. So they look at all those as factors, and then they do some sciencey stuff. I'm not really sure 100% because I'm not a scientist, but they can actually look at any sort of DNA or residue that's on the actual point. So if you take the boulder cache, which is, I think it was like 86, 90 different pieces of stone tools that were cached thousands of years ago that some guy dug up while planting plants in his yard, and he came out with these huge bifaces, which are, 2 sides, a biface that's not quite finished, 2 sides of a stone blade, and all of these actual points. And they tested some of the edges, and they had been used in giant land camel processing. So the residue of that camel still existed on that stone point.
That's crazy that they can test that far back. I mean,
and when you think about that cache, it's like, all right, animals migrate, hunters migrate. So they would probably cache those tools there, and during a migration back up or back down, wherever they were coming from, they would go to that cache.
Makes sense. You don't have to carry it
exactly
all that way.
86 to 90, stone tools are going to weigh quite a bit. So with this experiment, we're testing once again the capability of the throwers, along with the actual force that they throw at, given various darts, the projectile points, as well as the velocity in which they're throwing. So that one little clip you saw of me throwing that dart, those are doing some of the initial testings and early throws.
Is that like into ballistic gel or something?
That was just in a carport to catch the high speed, and then also to test the actual trajectory of the dart flying. So that's kind of the first phase, and the second phase is we're heading out kind of west into Colorado. We're going to get a big bull, because the first one we used wasn't a calf, but it was a cow that was relatively older. So now we're getting a much bigger bull, a lot more mass, a lot more, hide and fur and the whole 9 yards.
That's awesome.
And we're going to throw a lot of darts into it. So
if you need some moral support, I'm there with you, dude. Like,
yeah,
I'll help you. I'll carry all your equipment to the.
Right on. Yeah, and it's exciting, because I think the most important thing I take away from it is processing out the animal. So using stone tools on something like that, it gives you a whole different idea onto like, yes, a steel blade is absolutely awesome, but like
because I know what it takes to bone out an elk
exactly
in the backcountry
exactly
and put it in a pack with an incredibly well crafted blade with an awesome handle. And, you know,
and I think that having done that myself, it's also like, all right, this is the first time it was once in a lifetime experience. Having done it on elk and mule deer, now it's like, all right, you get to do it again. And the very first time I crafted some very specific tools, things that wrapped around your wrist, and was able to get this thing completely cleaned out. All the meat was completely removed, removed the tongue, separated the head, because we took the entire skeleton.
That's insane. With stone tools.
With stone tools. Yeah, they're probably on my Instagram. And they're no bigger than this.
Really?
Big. And then a couple crescent blades. You'll probably have to go back a little bit more. Let's see.
So what? I mean, how long
See that
is?
crescent,
Oh yeah,
see that crescent blade right there?
yeah. Go up.
Yeah, right
a little
there.
bit. Yeah.
I've used similar crescent blades just like that. It's got a little hook mechanism, but I mean, I wound up actually using more of my knuckles and elbows to like hold onto the hide, and then you just roll your knuckles through and it kind of separates the hide from the flesh, cutting into it. I mean,
Rather than like going down, like
Yeah.
cutting against, is it sinew or is it fat? It's a fat layer
it's-
in there. or
it's just
something?
like
I don't
a-
know what they consider that.
so you'll come
like a
across
membrane,
sinew. Yeah,
right?
but it's a membrane that really connects the skin to the actual flesh, but it's not sinew unless you're coming across those specific
Okay.
areas, like along the back or something. But I mean, you could separate an animal with your knuckles. It's just when you get to those cutting points where you gotta, make your key cuts to actually open it up where a good blade. So if you go a little bit more, we're almost there. Let's see. Actually, go up right there. To the right, my stern look of like.
Oh yeah.
So
You're about to get busy right there, aren't you?
some graphic content.
Yeah,
See photo.
that's all right.
So that's just pulling it
my
out,
God.
just pulling it apart.
And I know how tough an elk hide is, so I can imagine a bison is even.
Yeah, man, it's as thick as this wood.
Wow.
Super thick. Click one more. Let's see. Yeah, but before you know it, I was completely like no clothes on,
Yeah.
blood head to toe.
How long did that take you with stone tools? Because
It took us just under 8 hours.
oh my goodness.
And there was, when we first started off, there was about, I think 8 of us. But then as we were working on it, that number decreased. Stomachs can be a little weak at times, but then it actually turned into a processing plant, which would give me even more insight to how, if there was a small group of hunter-gatherers, let's say 8, you take down that animal, not everyone's going to start butchering it. So as you start opening it up, there's a little divide and conquer. So you can start handing meat off to people and start pulling the hide out. Someone's working here. So yes, the fact of processing it out with the tools, but actually getting a better idea into how somebody would, with a group, there's that little crescent blade, how a small group would take one large animal, work as a team to fully process it out. Now, there was a lot of photos and a lot of stuff that was going on while this was taking place, so that, just under 8 hours could probably be greatly reduced. We were trying to get the hide out, and we had to.
No,
really,
that's still incredible, though. I mean, to do it with stone tools is.
yeah, it was.
That's pretty
amazing,
epic, man.
Yeah, it was. Juice.
I don't think there's anybody that you could talk to that has this same sort of experience, Donny. Like, I think it's fucking awesome, man.
Right on.
Yeah, it's really cool. So, what was one of the biggest? Why did they do this study specifically? And
Yeah, so the first experiment was for Dr. Devon's PhD. Okay. So that was his thesis and his whole 9 yards. And then this one is just kind of a secondary experiment to answer some of the questions and kind of further his research. I mean, he's an Atlatl expert. I mean, he'll hand me a dart and I'll be like, this dart is short. And he's like, this is actually this style of dart based off of this research. So he knows the science very in depth. You'd actually love to. He'd be a great person to have.
Oh, I'd love to have him on.
He's all over the mountains. He knows so much stuff. But I think there's a little bit more application into it by actually having hunted with it and kind of using it in different capacities. So even like the knives that I built for that butchering, I base those off of my experiences and what kind of I know works in that sort of case. And Are they 100% archaeological? Yeah, there's some, references to some past, but I've modified them to fit this current man, which I always think is something that nappers, they always like to replicate a lot of the past. And for me, my focus has always been but creating tools that I use today. There's an influence from the past, but I use them for my uses based off of kind of my current pattern of life. So, the goal is, like you saw on the Instagram, to really test the ballistics and the velocity and get more data and research. And I just love being part of it.
That's super cool, man. Like, I've only heard one other story, and this was, matter of fact, this was just the other day. I was down at Rocky Mountain Specialty Gear, visiting my friend Tom Klum down there. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
No.
You two need to connect.
All right.
Yeah,
sure.
He's salt of the earth, Colorado. He's a Colorado native.
Sweet.
They probably have one of the oldest running bow shops or archery shops in the state of Colorado. But Tom is an amazing human, first off, but he's an incredible archery coach when it comes to traditional shooting. So like with longbows or recurve or something like that. Like, guys fly from all over the world to take lessons from.
Right on.
And they have the largest inventory of like longbows and recurves and crazy. But he's headed to Alaska. He's going to come in and do a podcast with us. But
sweet.
Somebody that he was going up there with the last time, and Tom was along for this hunt, they hunted a grizzly with a stone point.
Oh, right on.
Yeah, so I need to connect you with that whole clan of people, because that was pretty cool too. And I would imagine this doctor might want to talk to him too.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't think that they processed it and everything like full on, but he hunted a grizzly with a
that's awesome
stone point. I thought that was awesome. Pretty cool.
Yeah, the other little side of this experiment is we're going to be shooting some bows at it as well with stone points. So there's going to be a whole lot of testing with stone points, but I mean, you'd be surprised what a stone point will do to animal flesh. I mean, it is.
We've talked about that before because like I shoot a compound bow, I shoot a Matthews. Everything is machined perfect. The technology that's behind it is incredible.
That's beautiful.
I mean, I shoot a trigger release. I have sights that, like yesterday when we were shooting, I could shoot, 60 yards downhill and hit the size of this water bottle or something like that. And so for me, that's like accuracy is a big part of mine. Like what you do is so much more savage and badass, dude. But this is the way I've chosen to hunt, and everything. And I think we've talked about this before. Like my arrows are machined to the 5 millimeters specifically. I got floor plastic fletches on them that if they get wet, like nothing's gonna happen. A plastic knock, and then my broadheads are all exactly 100 grains, and razor sharp steel. So just the variance in stone size and weight and that sort of stuff. And because mine are so razor sharp, you said something to me the last time we were talking that made so much more sense. There's no serration, there's no nothing. Like when I have a ton of penetration, a ton of pass through, like the total weight of my arrow is like over 500 grains. So it'll blow through a rib or something and then, pass through
it's got movement
on an elk. So it's got some serious heat behind it. But sometimes I've shot even in the vitals and have had very minimal blood trail just because maybe an arrow is still in something, or maybe the wound is so clean that you may have brought up the point with like a stone, like something like this.
Yeah.
There's so much more
edge and
gnarliness. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when you think about a clean pass through on a kill, it's going to pass through, it's going to close. It's going to bleed, but a lot of that blood will be held internally and based on, the shot. There's a lot of variables involved in that. But a stone, when it makes entry, based on your range and different factors, I mean, it can pass through. However, if you're hunting, let's say bison, right? So yeah, I can throw an atlatl dart through a bison, but it's on the ground, it's not moving. If you get one, nothing's going to stand right there, especially a bison. So,
not to mention the flinch, because that's a muscle flex. Like when a deer drops or something. Or,
there's a lot of things that are taking place. I've just found based on some of the hogs that I've taken with stone points, when a stone point makes entry into something, it sticks and it stays, and then as that animal moves, it just lacerates, and it creates this huge cavity, this huge wound, and the bleed out. It's super quick because
it makes so much more sense to me. Yeah.
And case by case, I know if you're 60 yards out and you take a shot, you'll be able to hit that elk and you'll get deep penetration. It's going to go down, but I also believe over that time and distance, some of the velocity is dying down, and some of that slowdown in velocity is going to change how that arrow is going to interact with the body.
Sure.
It's just like shooting a rifle at something,
Oh yeah, 100%. And I typically, I'll set a range during hunting season. This is back to Tom Klum. Like one of the first times he set me down and we started talking about traditional archery, he's like, I always hear these stories of guys with like 100-yard shots and 60, 80 yards and stuff. He's like, I don't want to hear those stories.
Yeah.
I want to hear about the guys that 5 or 10.
Yeah. That's a hunt. That's where you got to play everything out. And I think me personally, I seek that out just for the whole purpose. Like I think I've said it before on here. I'd rather hunt 100 days and not kill something
100%
than one day, and it's about the hunt, but also it's like, if I can get close, like I've done everything right.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying if you take a shot that's far out or something like that, but me personally, I seek that out where I can get close, and you got to play everything right. Everything, the wind, the smell, the noises, everything is done. Even when you draw, if you're shooting an Osage bow or a hackberry bow or a yew bow, just the noises you make when you draw, or if you already have your arrow out or the knock, just everything matters. Yeah. And it's a far bigger challenge in certain, aspects, but it's also one of those things where it's like, if you fail in that moment, you've just learned a huge lesson. It's not like you're like, all right, the next time this comes up, I got to make sure that if I am barefoot, I got to have a good layer of mud on my feet, or I've got to have walked a little bit, or I've got to have a little durability, or if I'm sitting there with an arrow, my fingers looped underneath and it doesn't knock on my bow, I don't make any sound when that contact goes, or just everything and anything. It's like surgery.
Oh, there's so many little variables, and so many learning lessons. And I think the only way to learn is to actually be out there and doing it. Like you can read all the books you want, you can watch all the YouTube videos you want, and I'm sure that stuff's somewhat helpful, but like that firsthand experience of like understanding animal behavior is something that you can't really read in a book, I don't think, or like
you can get
being in the moment.
You can get knowledge from it. Right? We've talked knowledge, skills, and abilities. I mean, you can get some knowledge, the facts of something, but the skills and abilities come when you take that knowledge and you apply it in that real setting. So, yeah, being knowledgeable on the topic, awesome. But if you lack the skills and abilities to employ that knowledge, then you're just kind of like, great. You're a smart guy, Yeah. So, I don't know. I think just with all the stone points and this experiment that's coming up and the yield of bison meat at the end,
that's so awesome, man.
That'd be a pretty.
I'm happy for you.
Oh, I appreciate it. Yeah,
that's right up your. You should do more of those, man. I think. Like, I think every university should hire Donny to come out and throw some Atlatl.
If you're listening, please do.
When it comes to making an Atlatl, can somebody make one themselves? Can somebody buy one from somewhere?
Yeah, like, I mean, you can probably make an Atlatl in like 30 minutes.
Really?
All it is when you really think about it, it's an extension of your arm with a little hook at the end or a little spur. And you just take one long shaft or arrow, piece of cane, piece of bamboo, coyote willow, put a little divot in the back, and you can throw it. Now, granted, you got a half to stone point, but if you're going for fish or something like that, most trees when they grow, or even willow, they all have a thicker end, and then they all taper out to the very tip. So for an Atlatl, specifically with no point, and you want to go for fish, you just flip it around. So the heavier end's in the front, and so that gives you kind of
leads, right? Without any sort of fletching.
Yeah, no fletching, because the back end is moving slightly, but all the weight's to the front, and that just leads to the fish. You can do that with a squirrel. You can do it real close, up close and sort of personal, but that's the very simple version, an extension of your arm with a hook, connect it, throw it. But as you get more into the precision and the hunting, you dial in your Atlatl. You can put different weighted stones on there to change your throwing points. There's some aesthetics you can do. The stone point itself, or even using like a blunt tip for taking squirrels. I mean, I've thrown plenty of Atlatls at things where the dart sticks into the tree because I was a little bit off, and now there's a 7-foot dart sitting up in a tree. I'm like, well, I guess it stays.
Yeah.
But there's all different sorts of tips for shafts. I mean, if you think of a harpoon, like the early Inuit style harpoons,
Is it the same concept with a harpoon?
Pretty much.
Really?
Every culture that has pretty much existed on this planet has employed some method of an Atlatl, a giant spear thrower, giant air thrower. The Mayans, the Incans, the Inuit, all over, Paleo, Indians, all through Egypt. There hasn't been a culture that I know of that has, Australian Aboriginals today still throw Atlatls in various styles. So, it's a tool.
Could you imagine? Living in that paleoific. Now I'm screwing that up too. Period.
Yeah.
And hunting mammoth or something, man.
I can absolutely imagine that. Yeah. I imagine it every day.
That is insane.
Well, how the whole theory came around was, you have Clovis points, which is a large point that's fluted, meaning there's a large section at the base that's taken out for connection. And down in Clovis, New Mexico, they found a projectile point lodged in mammoth bones, so which gave entire rise into we did hunt megafauna. Now it's coming into, there's always people that agree, don't agree, this, that, and the other, but, individuals like Devin, they prove it to be 100% like, yes, we can, aside from, purchasing an elephant and hunting an elephant, which would not go over well anywhere. That would be one of those things. So it's a good time.
Yeah, for sure. I'm glad that you're out there doing it, and thanks for coming in and talking to us about it, man. I think it's super cool, and if anybody wants any of this information, it's all kind of on your Instagram page. That's how we connected a few years ago, and it just has turned into a friendship where you keep bringing me cool stuff.
Instagram's a great place to go to.
Is it at Donny Dust?
Yeah, just Donny Dust, at Donny Dust, and there's all sorts of.
Let's talk about your school and what you do there, because you have it Paleo Track?
Yeah,
right.
Paleo Track Survival. It's just a wilderness self-reliance school that I run here in Colorado, down in the Chihuahua Desert, in Texas, and then also in New Mexico. And it's a school to just build people's self-reliance, their exposure to the outdoors, whether it's, the outdoors has been a huge factor in their life, or it's their first time going out, and they just kind of want to better understand their capabilities, as well as a major focus into primitive technologies, hunting, trapping, fishing, living off-grid, living remotely with...
I think fire is a big one that you teach, right?
Fire is a huge... Napping is what I'm always teaching how to... I always say...
TikTok is fucking great, man.
Right on. Yeah, it's always a thing where, TikTok's been a great adventure. Even, yesterday at this commencement speech, that was brought up and we'd like to bring up Donny Dust, blah, 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 blah. And he's got 10 million followers. Like, oh my God, I can't escape this. But
that's insane though. But it's crazy because the only thing I view TikTok as is girls shaking their asses.
Yeah.
And the only reason I'm on it is honestly because of you. So how does that work? Because people reach out to you and you're building stone tools and stuff. And they'll be like, hey, can you make a battle axe or whatever it is, right?
I'll make one out of stone. Yeah.
That's fucking awesome.
Yeah, it started a couple of years ago. My son basically, he wanted to go on it. And I was like, I don't know, guy. There's a lot of weird stuff on there. So I went on there.
It's 10.4. Come on, give yourself some credit.
Yeah, it's all good.
That's insane, man.
But it's he went on it. I felt weird being on it. I'm like, we need to come off. He's like, just put videos on there. So I threw videos on there, and then next thing you know, if you go down to the next row, it's like opening a coconut. Something as simple as that. Yeah. Not using anything. There's lots of, building a muckawattle, which is like an Aztec sword. various, there's a battle axe, and just there's some survival stuff in there. I've kind of learned that people like the survival stuff, but they like to see me make things, and whether it's something from stone or animal hide or an arrow, how do you connect a stone arrow point to an arrow? What is the black glue that you use, which is this pine pitch glue?
You gave me some of that too.
Yeah. How do you do this? How do you do that? Because people are genuinely curious about it, and you can go on all sorts of different resources and discover.
Well, it's pretty fucking cool to be able to pick up a rock and turn it into something that's useful. A rock and a stick. Like that's.
Yeah, I mean,
it's like I guess if you grew up like we did, it's every childhood dream, man.
Yeah.
It was like
that's what you
pine
want.
cones were grenades,
That's it.
sticks were guns,
That's
and
it.
yeah.
That's
But if
it.
we would have known this, we would have been a hell of a lot more dangerous.
Well, I mean, I think the one thing I do enjoy is when I get videos back from people of their kids or a dad out there with his daughters or his sons, and they're actually building a shelter, or they're rubbing sticks on the ground to make them pointy, and they're throwing them. Like, that's awesome. Keep doing that. That's what it's all about. And I mean, some of them are just, what is Uznia and how is it beneficial? How you make a stone blade.
I think it's super cool too that you're having that big of an influence on people today that are, we're so wrapped up in technology and everything. And here's Donny with 10 million followers and making stone tools. I think it's fucking rad.
It works. No, it's turned into one of these things where, like pretty routinely anywhere we go, someone will walk up and be like, "Are you the guy?" Because people will
The guy, huh?
Yeah,
That's what you've been dubbed as?
they call me the guy because somebody will send in a comment like, "Hey, can you make this?" So then I take that comment, I repeat it like, "Can you make an arrowhead?" And then I look at the camera and say, "Yeah." And then I just make the arrowhead. I'm like, "That's how I make an arrowhead." Thanks. Yeah. So awesome. I'm known as the guy. So even when we were down in Texas or just, my girlfriend and I, we were in Belize, and someone's like, "Are you the guy?" I'm like, "Oh my God, I can't escape this." It's one of those things, but
that's great.
Yeah, and then what I try to do is say these are just simple ways of doing things. If you want more in-depth stuff, like I have a YouTube channel where there's all sorts of videos on there, but this is just kind of the teaser, if you will.
Yeah, because it's 1 minute clips.
Yeah.
It's amazing how much you can digest in 1 minute, and you do a good job putting them together too. Like I've found myself watching them for hours on end.
Yeah, yeah,
great. Yeah, go follow Donny, man. It's
an
awesome person to follow, and more importantly, if you want to learn some of this stuff, you have so many classes a year, right? And then you're a busy guy. You got all kinds of stuff. There's always photo shoots, universities, your TV shows. You got.
There's always something because I want to be doing something. I know this year I'm going to be a little bit lighter on the classes. I'm just going to be running one-on-ones. So I got to put a couple dates on my calendar where I'm just going to be offering one-on-one classes, first come, first serve. But my focus is.
I want to talk to you about that off air.
Yeah, man. Yeah, for sure. But the book is really the focus at this point because it's like. Once winter hits, it's easy to write, sure. But I just need to get more cracking into this book. So I'll run a couple courses. I'll do some. I think I'm going to do a couple kids events this year, just towards the end of the summer. I always find in the beginning of the school year, a lot of kids do a lot of like early man, caveman sort of stuff, where they learn about the Paleolithic, Neolithic, Mesolithic sort of eras. And I get a lot of responses specifically through TikTok like, "Hey, we just learned about that in school." So I think I want to try and run a couple single-day kids camps where they can come and see some of these things and experience. We'll do a nature walk, maybe some hand fishing, something like that. But
super rad.
Yeah, things are coming.
Do you enjoy teaching kids more than you do adults? Like I've always found, like if I'm, I kind of do.
Yeah, I enjoy kids because there's everyone's curious.
Like to see that light come on too.
But when they see like how this works and then they can do it, because like you go to a shooting range, if your kids are well versed in firearms, it's one thing, but I'm like, this is a stick, we can take turkey with it, throw it. They're like, "What?" I'm like, "Yeah, just throw it." and they throw it, and then they see it fly off in the distance. They're like, "This is the coolest," you know.
Right.
And you bring Atlatl,
Especially if they've made it themselves,
yeah.
right?
Well, that's even cooler. I mean, I've made stone slings with kids, which is a pouch and 2 pieces of string in simple form, giving them giant marshmallows and say, "All right, go go throw them," you know. And it's like, it's totally safe. Kids are having fun, and later on they see it in school, or they hear about it, or they see it in TV, and they're like, "I've done that," or, you know, it's fun. It's definitely fun.
That's super cool. What what do you got coming up in the future? I mean, I know you're writing the book and you've got this Bison thing going, but is there more TV stuff on the horizon and stuff? I know you were in the Amazon for a little bit or something, right?
Yeah. So I was down in the Amazon this past March. I did a TV show with Ed Stafford called First Man Out. Basically, we get dropped off on the Amazon River. We swim. We run through the jungle, racing each other, and then whoever gets to this one boat first wins. I won't go into the who won, but tune in. Yeah, so there was that. And, you know, really in the future, it's just the book. I'm really focusing this year on this hunting season. Last year with filming and stuff, I didn't get as much hunting in as I wanted. But this year is...
Myself included, man. You can just count on there probably won't be any Mountainside podcast released in September.
Warning now. But that's going to be one of my focuses, and it's really maximizing. Again, it's never about the trophy. It's about just filling that freezer. And then I'm going to do a couple hunts down in Texas, and then my place down in New Mexico. So this, you know, really for me, starting in August when it's marmot season, because that's my favorite thing to hunt.
That's crazy. I got to try that. I still haven't hunted a marmot just because I'm always like,
let's go, man.
All right,
we'll go marmot.
Let's do it.
It's a fun way to start.
And there's a season on them, right? Like it's in late August?
Yeah, late August, and they close out around October.
Oh, okay. So you can hunt them through September, too, because I run into them all the time elk hunting.
They're absolutely delicious, and I like hunting them because it really warms you up. I mean, you should always be shooting your bow, but it's like, all right, now there's something that sees, smells, senses you, that sort of thing. But they're delicious, great little pelts on them. And
you don't want to miss at them because they're always on top of a rock or some shit.
Scree fields, the whole 9 yards. It's a game with the marmot, but so yeah, it really starts in that August, which transitions also into ptarmigan. That's that early season as well, and then fall turkey, elk, and it just moves nicely into, it's like August, September, and then October transitions into, you know, other hunting opportunities. But that's really it. There's haven't really heard if there's going to be a second season of Mud, Sweat, and Beards yet. If that,
there should be.
Yeah,
my kids are going to be pissed.
Yeah, if there is, they
I'm gonna have them write the network.
Yeah, everyone start writing. They mentioned probably like maybe a September time to potentially start filming if that's when it goes, and which would be great because some of the issues we ran in this first season is it was all shot during the summer, and everywhere we went there was no hunting season. I mean, Louisiana, like, yeah, we could shoot nutria. Iceland, we were allowed to do all the puffing, but you know, we were in New Mexico.
That was wild, man.
Oh yeah, they were good.
That was crazy. Yeah.
But like in New Mexico, there was mule deer everywhere, and I've been to New Mexico so many times, and like I'd go for water in the morning, and there'd be like this big buck standing there. I'm like, oh gosh, all right, I'll just go eat a snake, or let's go eat a rat, that sort of thing. But like if that guy was right there, it would have been a great opportunity to, you know, hunt and harvest, smoke some meat, process a hide, do that, you know, all that on TV, and give people kind of a different perspective into hunting. But so possibly a second season. I'm always working on my own little projects. I like to go down to my place in New Mexico right at the tail end of the hunting season here in Colorado, and then transition into a hunting season in New Mexico, and then build a small earth lodge or a pit house and try and live in that guy for maybe like 3 months, moving into the winter. But yeah, it's all about taking some game and smoking it and getting it all prepped and ready, and then living out there with my dog. So that's what I would like to do. I'm kind of working on some initial plans for that. And then I'm always out, you know, adventuring and doing some filming. My girlfriend and I were going to go do our own, I think like 10 to 12 day primitive hunter-gatherer trip. put on some animal hides, bring some dogs, and just hand fish and just do our own thing. She's all about it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It sounds like you found the right match.
Yeah, she's a rock star. The great thing is, like, she barely breaks 100 pounds, so she doesn't eat a lot.
Okay.
So I get to eat a lot of the food. She'll eat like half a trout, and I'm like, I'll eat the head, the tail, and everything else. And so it's a good balance of power. But she's a great archer. She's put all of her tags in this year, and she comes from Texas, so her whole family hunts, and so we're gonna get on some bulls this year and. Fill the freezer, get some fish. Awesome. Yeah, it's going to be a good time.
It's great. Have you figured out anything about the draw? I haven't gotten mine.
No.
I don't think we find out until like the beginning of June, right?
I think so, yeah. The stuff I got in the mail was my small game, lifetime, and then my fishing. And then I pulled a springtime turkey and didn't get anything out there.
And I'm always hopeful this time of year, and then I get let down.
Yeah.
Like, we used to draw like every other year, and now I think that they're gapping it out a little bit bigger.
I think so.
I think I have like 4 or 5 preference points now for trying to get into an area that I want to get into. Man, one of the things I love about you is you're a humble guy.
Oh,
and just fucking salt of the earth, Donny.
Appreciate it, man.
But one of my favorite things about you, and you've said this time and time again, and I want to dive into a little bit more of this, is your approach to experience, because there's so many people that are out there on Instagram now and all these social platforms that are all telling you how to live your life and what you should be doing and what you shouldn't and how much experience they have. And I think that yours is the latter, and I can't think of really anybody else, maybe 1 or 2 people that are leading by example, and I feel like you're one of those.
Appreciate it.
And you've said this outright on the podcast. Like, I always judge my experiences having 1 day experience.
Yeah.
Or 1 day's of experience.
Yeah. I break it kind of down to like 1 day or 1 year's worth of experience. Because people always ask, how many years experience do you have, hunting or napping? And I always say, I've got one. I've got 1 day, or I've got 1 year or 1 month of experience, because if I'm always doing the exact same thing every day, every month, or every year, you're not really experiencing much. You're just repeating a process, repeating that cycle. So for me, the goal is always to mix it up and challenge yourself by giving new opportunities, new exposure points where you can gain a different approach into experience. Because I don't really think it boils down to, maybe if you're like a heart surgeon, maybe some experience is needed. Don't get me wrong. Sure. But I think that experience is, we use it as a quantifier into someone's abilities. I mean, you could be a heart surgeon, you could be, a great hunter and have 40 years experience and not produce or not really do what would be or equate to, I don't want to use the word winning, but like, what quantifies experience? Sure. What really is it? I mean,
especially because the wilderness is a great equalizer to me, right? It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
And I'm taking this quote specifically from Cam Haynes, just put out a new book that I'm deep into right now. But, he was talking about how the wilderness is the best equalizer, because it doesn't matter how much money you have, where you're from.
Doesn't care.
Yeah, what your experience is. I mean, experience helps, but it's not. It's an equalizer where.
Yeah, I would say it doesn't lie, it doesn't cheat, it doesn't steal, it doesn't manipulate. It is what it is. Yeah. And that's it. So, as many times as I've been out in the backcountry or various portions around the world, it's always a new experience. So I can, and that's where you like to use the word reliance. I can rely on the things that I know, and hopefully they can apply in this given environment and situation. But I mean, it's not always the case. And I think it's the ability to adapt and kind of overcome those things and say, you don't need $1,000 worth of gear to have a good time or to experience the outdoors. You can just be who you are, kind of go in with like virgin eyes and experience it. And that's going to give you that moment of experience. Because it's not about like really the end state. It's like, if you enjoy the journey, if you enjoy the path you're walking, all of the successes will come regardless. They're just going to happen. You wouldn't even realize it. So it's not about the destination. It's really about that journey. And all of that journey is just littered full of experiences and opportunities, successes as well as failures. And I think that's really what, when I talk with someone and it's like, yeah, got 30 years experience, or you're like, here's this one trip I went on. I was hunting with my buddies. We did this. This is what happened. I'm like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's more experience than potentially somebody with 30 years experience, air quotes. So, that's my take, man. Keep it simple.
I love the story of you having all this crazy equipment and taking it down to the corner and giving it to a bunch of homeless guys, like these incredible backpacks and stuff. And, sleeping bags and tents and all this stuff, and then just going that primitive route. And I think we kind of touched on it in the last couple podcasts, but I don't think we really dove into deep, like what was that connection, and why did you make that jump just to go straight primitive savage?
I think it was something we all want to do. Like, everyone wants to, like, I want to wear a loincloth and live in the woods. And there's a lot of factors that probably, prohibit that in certain people's lives. I think for me, I was getting ready to walk like through the Mojave Desert when I was out in California. And as I was preparing for this, adventure, I was just like, man, I've got like all of this stuff. I've got backpacks and tents and water purifiers and stoves and just so much stuff. And I knew that ancient cultures lived in this area. And I was like, whoa, slow down. Like, why and how did they do it? What can you learn from that? And then do I really need all this stuff? So I put my trip on a little hiatus, and I said, all right, you need to learn a little bit. So I actually enrolled in one archaeology class at the local community college. And the professor there, I wish I could remember her name. She was absolutely awesome, but she kicked the class off. She came in with like a handful of stone points and basically was like, this is what we used to hunt with. These are the tools. This is this. And I was like, bingo. Everything just kind of came into focus. I chatted with her offline. She put me in contact with a guy that could make stone tools. I think I paid him a couple $100. He built me some stuff out of obsidian. I didn't know how to nap at that point. And I basically said, you need to use these tools per her kind of class and the kind of concepts, and said, use these tools into understanding how you can go about living in a natural landscape. And I was definitely into survival and bushcraft and all those things prior to, but there was a lot more modern stuff, if you will, axes and knives. And
so was this like a self-challenge, or was it something that a desire? Or?
I think it was a long-term desire, because even my time in the military, I had attended a lot of survival schools, and you go to those schools and then you work with various cultures around the world, and they still kind of hold on to those roots of using some of their old technologies in their modern times. So I've always been kind of fascinated by that. But I think for this particular trip, I wanted to go about it a little bit different. So for me, it was understanding the cultures that existed there. How do they go about living? How do they go about, thriving? And can I do that? After using those tools and realizing you can totally do this, I started to learn, taught myself how to nap. This is right when the era of YouTube was really about sharing videos with family members, that sort of thing. There wasn't a lot of content, so I got my hands on some more books based off her recommendations and just started napping, built myself a toolkit, and then did my long walk through the desert, which really started around the Salton Sea and then ended up in like Mammoth, California.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Shit, that's a long ways.
Yeah, it's a really long ways.
Yeah.
And then
that's one of my favorite spots. I used to spend
love Mammoth.
a lot of summer, a couple weeks out of every summer up there for an event that I used to do, and
it's beautiful.
It's fucking awesome.
It's beautiful. And I think that end spot on the trip, knowing that there's also obsidian up there, was even kind of like cooler. So it was kind of like, all right, why are you doing this trip? To, discover yourself and learn more, put these things in application. More importantly, go get stone. Yeah. So it was like you're kind of earning the right to go get that stone by going on the long walk. Cause like
not smoking weed, people, like
obsidian.
For people that are listening to this and maybe don't know much about the different type of stones and what actually goes into napping, you're looking for specific type of rock or stone. And they're almost like obsidian is almost as close to like a piece of glass. Like it almost looks like a beer bottle or something. Yeah,
typically
it's black, right?
Yeah, it's volcanic glass. It comes in like 10 or 12 different colors, from rainbows to grays to smokies to mahoganies to greens. It's volcanic glass.
And then this would be chert?
That's a chert, yeah.
Okay.
So you,
And then sometimes they use sandstone too, right? Or
sandstone would be more into
flint?
so yeah, we take all the different stones. Most people just group a lot of stones as flint, but there's different components to the stone based on the silicate rates in that stone that make it desirable. The goal is to have something break smooth and breaks like glass, razor sharp edges, and more importantly, with stone that is smooth and breaks like glass, you can control where the stone travels and how it breaks. That's the actual art behind it. So if you pick up a piece of sandstone, limestone, granite, things like, they're very granular, and when you break it, it just kind of either crumbles or you get really jagged edges. When you break a piece of chert, or flint is a type of chert, but chert in the macro is kind of the common term. When you break a piece of chert, it's razor sharp, it's super smooth.
So sharp.
Yeah.
Even without any
without-
serration.
And that's really the first thing I teach people to make, is to break a piece off and get what's called like a discoidal flake, a razor sharp flake that you could process out of bison, use everything and anything you wanted, to using that one stone flake, and then once it dulls, to take an antler tine and resharpen it and use it again. That's like really your first knife. That's the first thing I learned to make. Once I went through all of those tools, I broke a flake off a piece of obsidian, made a knife, used it, resharpened it, kept using it. It was like, all right.
As many of these tools that you've made, have you ever had any serious injuries while constructing them, like where you accidentally cut yourself or opened yourself up?
If you go back on my Instagram, there's probably a few of those photos, but once I was working with obsidian and I was doing some pressure flaking, and I was pushing really down hard onto the edge, and it slipped and it just sliced a quarter-sized chunk out of my thumb that had to get cauterized because it was it wouldn't stop bleeding. I've given myself stitches on multiple occasions. I've broken flakes, and a flake comes off and just like slices your leg open. I mean, you should probably wear long pants. I usually
I always see with like a piece of leather over, or like hide, breaking rocks.
That's a bison hide, so it's super thick and it gives me a little bit of cushion. But yeah, I mean, injuries. I should definitely wear glasses, but I'm like, one day I'll be a pirate. But yeah, injuries definitely come with it. But I think for me, I wanted to learn how to do it. So in order to force myself, it's like people that go camping, or they're going to go, out for like a survival weekend. They park their truck, they walk a day in, and they're like, hey, I'll just go back to my truck, Yeah. So if you remove all of those options and you force yourself to do it, so you have to. So basically, my ex-wife dropped me off in this one spot, and I said, I'll see you when I see you. And I just started walking. And then later on got picked up and for that particular trip. And then that's kind of just, formulated and became these long walks and these adventures that I like to go on, where, you can give yourself a given set of tools, or you can say, I know everything can come from the natural environment, therefore I'll bring nothing, and I will make everything I need. And that's stone blades, stone knives, wooden bowls, clay pots, clothing, fire making material, everything and anything can come from that natural environment. It's not saying if your approach is to go in with a knife doesn't mean you're wrong. That's just your way, a way, not necessarily the way. So for me, I like to operate, I always call it these 3 different praxis, and I break this down quite a bit in Earthwormer, where it's high tech, low tech, and no tech. So like no tech is all primitive technologies. Low tech is maybe like a wool blanket, a canvas tarp, flint and steel, a knife, something like that. High tech is more like a tent, sleeping bag, stove. So people operate in those 3 different zones or praxis, and it allows them to experience the natural world how they want. Me, I typically operate when it's me by myself in the low tech, more importantly, the no tech zone. If I'm going camping and we're going to be doing some fly fishing or whatever, it's like, well, let's bring a tent. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just given that environment, we're going for fishing, we're going to do a barbecue, you're there with a couple other families, whatever the case may be. So if you figure out where your comfort zone is and you trust, or your praxis, if you like to operate in that kind of low tech environment and say, all right, I'm going to bring just a wool blanket for these next couple days, but I'm also going to bring a silk sleeping bag liner just in case. Then you're testing your abilities to really experience, kind of the outdoors and really challenge
break glass in case of emergency type thing.
It's that. Because the one thing I don't like about hunting is all the crap that people believe they need to bring with them.
Oh, it's insane.
It's
absolutely
insane.
We've talked about
Oh
this
my
because, like, you know, I guess I come from a long my family's been bow hunting since, I don't know a generation that didn't. Like, as soon as Fred Bear came along or whatever, right? Like, they all decided, or Pope and Young, or, you know, all those stories in those books, like back in the 20s, they just, that's what they did, right?
It was cheaper than a rifle.
Yeah. And I think that there's a certain connection with it, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Too. Like, that's why I'm an archery hunter now.
Absolutely.
I feel way more connected. I don't think I'll ever pick up a gun and shoot something again. Like, I just don't have any desire to. I don't know why. But yeah, I think that connection that you have with that, but the hunting industry has turned into such a big thing, especially now that it's been romanticized and popularized, and the pandemic helped, you know, push it even further.
Yeah.
But there's all these, like, and I'm not knocking any of our sponsors, because we do have a sponsor that's starting their own hunt line of camo and stuff, and it's not going to be cheap. There's some technology in it. It's 100% USA made, which is super cool.
Awesome.
That's why I'm stoked to be involved with them. And I will probably be wearing it, but it is going to be expensive camouflage. And I mean, if you go back and like look at some of my uncles and grandfather and stuff, they were out, you know, in
red flannels
and
cigarette, cowboy hat, and their work boots.
Yeah,
totally fine.
Yeah,
you know,
you can get by.
I don't think there's anything wrong with the technology that's come along.
But do you need all that, you know?
Yeah, that's the question. Is like, you can experience a hunt any different way. You can experience camping, backpacking, in any, you know, given way that you want to. And I think when people remove some of the stuff and say, all right, I'm going to go elk hunting for the next, you know, 4 or 5 days. I'm not going to bring any food. I'm going to catch some fish in between hunts. I'm going to bring maybe some salt. I'm going to bring a couple of these little things that are going to enable me to hunt, but I want to experience this hunt in a different manner. Sure. I want to eliminate the freeze-dried food, the 30 pounds of extra this, the 30 pounds of this, 12 GPSs, trackers, I mean, there's so much stuff where it's like, it's a way, not necessarily the way, but I think for me personally, I seek out a different means of obtaining that end state of taking an animal, and I like to, you know, honor the hunt in certain aspects. And it's not saying that people need to do what I do. I would never require or request anyone to do that. Yeah.
And that's part of the problem with some of these people, is they feel entitled and it should be their way. You know,
you do it my way or you're not doing it. It's like, oh, okay, go have fun.
And I think more now than ever, like, we need good examples in the space, and we also need camaraderie, no matter whether you're a traditional bow hunter or a primitive bow hunter or a compound bow hunter that's taking shots at 100 yards or whatever you're doing, you know, like, as long as it's ethical and you're representing the hunt. And I think one of the coolest things that we touched on the last time, and we went deep into this conversation that was never recorded because of the Russian blackout.
No worries.
But we were talking about honor in the hunt, and I noticed on Mud, Sweat, and Beards, you had a little tradition, but you didn't really dive into it in elaboration in the show, and we talked about it. But how do you honor a hunt? Because I have my own rituals. Yeah. And just something that I've done, and it's not necessarily anything that, like, my family's passed down. I'm sure that they have their own too, and I'd love to ask them these questions, like my uncles and stuff. And
well, I mean, honoring the hunt is really it's part of this kind of rule of 3, if I will. So the first rule is hunting is about the resource to sustain it, as well as for it to sustain you. So that's the meat, the hide, the tendons, the organ meats. It's a source of food, and we should always look at that animal highest respects, and it's going to provide. It's a resource. Next one would be honoring the hunt, and then the last one is our blood origin. We are all hunters. That is what we do from our evolution all the way up until now, and we should not forget our blood origin into where we come from.
So important.
Absolutely. And the honoring the hunt for me is really hunting by the lesser means, meaning that case by case, but what am I hunting? How am I go about hunting it? What are the tools that I'm using? What enablers am I using to hunt this animal. And by honoring the hunt, I like to bring it to the simplest form, some form of a primitive bow, maybe even walking in moccasins or buckskins, or maybe a pair of pants and a shirt. Keeping it very, very natural in its purest form, and knowing that I'm going out there to hunt. And the more advantages I give myself, I actually remove my blood origin. Also, with honoring that hunt is, once game is taken, it's accepting, a life for a life. So I always like to perform kind of a food ritual where whatever that animal eats, I like to place it in its mouth. And as I process it, I know that it's having its last meal prior to, the actual hunt going down. But I acknowledge that it is consuming life, whether it's in plants or something else. And now I am consuming its life. And by giving that respect, wherever it goes, it can have its meal. It can be a sign of accepting that it's a life. It genuinely has feelings. It emotes. It has its family, and it has a life. And by acknowledging that, I'm bringing more attention, my own awareness to the life that it holds, and appreciating it that much more. It's not a sign of disrespect where you shoot it, you throw it in the back of your truck, and it's just
strapped to the hood.
Yeah. It's emotional, it's beautiful, and it's something that by honoring it, I feel that me personally, I'm giving that animal the highest respects, because it is a life. And even on, mud, sweat, and beards, I clubbed a porcupine with a club that was no longer than like 14 inches. And the one thing I tried to express to people there, and they kind of captured it a little bit, was hunting we can remove ourselves from the actual death that occurs from afar, whether it's a bullet, an arrow, a bolt, whatever the case may be. But when you're up close and personal with something, and you see its eyes right before it dies, before whether you club it or you stab it or you spear it, something to that extent, it's very emotional, because you do acknowledge that it is a life. It
puts a value on it.
It's a huge value. It's life, and acknowledging that and honoring that hunt, knowing there is no such thing as, in my personal opinion, ethical killing is one thing, but it's always about the quickest form that I can kill this animal, this creature. How quick can I make this pain go away for it?
And I guess that's where my value comes in when I say ethical. Like, I want
quick.
I want them to not even really know, oh, that stings, and then next thing you know, their legs up. You know,
they go to sleep.
Yeah,
eyes go. They do their thing. And I think those three things: resources, honoring the hunt, and the blood origins. Those three things tie in together very, innately to me, and very emotionally to me, because I think now you are taking a life. But if you break it down into, did you honor this animal in this hunting process? You did. Then you're doing right. Are you embracing your origin as a human being? Are you hunting? That is what we do. We cannot ever omit that from our daily thoughts. And more importantly, are these resources being used? If those three things fall into, alignment, then you're doing it right.
And I think that this is the most important thing, is actually sharing what these traditions are to yourself, your personal beliefs, personal thoughts, because I think that hunters in general, whether they have all the badass equipment or doing it primitively or however, is that there's this bad stigma that's been with us for the last 100 years, right? This was a form of survival, first and foremost, like you said, like the blood origin.
Yeah.
And I think that the more that I'm not a fan of wool culture at all.
Yeah.
Like, it pisses me off. Like, I believe everybody should have rights, no matter what your beliefs are. And I think that's the best part of, living in the country that we do. And you should have freedom of speech and stuff. But to impose that on other people and to diminish, their voice and what they can actually believe is, I think that that's what's happening with wool culture, but let's not even dive into that. But I think hunting falls along the same lines. Like, you have these social platforms that are now censoring it, or you have to go through another filter to see something that's a natural process. That does put a value on life, whether it's shocking when you're looking at that picture because you've never seen how something is processed.
That's it.
But you sure as shit are not going to see what happens in a meat packing factory.
No.
And I think hunters in general have the stigma of, because it's always the grip and grin photos, right? And we've talked about this before. And I think that there's a certain way that you can portray that. And if you're portraying the journey and everything leading up to it and why you're so excited is the most important part of that, right? Is what we determined the last time we were
capture.
talking.
I spent 40 days for this because it's going to provide food. It's like break it down aside from the grip and grin, break it down and tell the story. I think don't focus on the gear. Be like, the gear will have an impact, but if it wasn't for, KUIU, whatever, I wouldn't have been. Yeah, you would have.
And that's the problem with endorsements, right?
Yeah, it's good and it's bad because those things are enablers for you to be part of that journey, but it's not the focus. The focus should be the connection between you and what has just occurred. And I think if we capture it the right way, the world will see, like, hunting is one. It's great for the environment in certain regards, how the biology and the ethics behind it and what it does for state resources and what it does for state funding. And but I think if more people just accepted that, like when you go to the store and you buy meat, that is a very brutal form of killing that animal.
And you want to talk about impacts to the environment? Let's talk about a cellophane wrapped piece of styrofoam that holds your meat and then gets trucked all over the freaking. It gets trucked to the meat plant. Yeah, I don't know. I just think you really need to take a couple steps back and look at, like, I can understand if you don't want to eat meat, like that's your do your thing. But there's also an impact to the environment, whether you're buying a loaf of bread.
Oh yeah.
Or you're out, harvesting a bison, pulling the heart out. There is, but I think that if you really look at it, like, obviously you're going to have to drive to wherever you go, or you could certainly walk. But, time is of the essence in this day and age now that we live in. I think that that's a major connection that we've lost. Mm-hmm. We travel a lot further, and it's so easy to hop on a plane in 12 hours here and across the world, But yeah, I think that needs to be looked at as a whole, before you turn around and point the finger. And I think the best way that we can portray that is like you do, like honoring the hunt.
Absolutely.
Respecting, the blood origins, I think is huge. Like you said, like that's something I've never really thought of. And that's a huge part of it, right? Because this hasn't been an issue for thousands of years until the last 100 and maybe 20 that people are having an issue with this now. And
commercial hunting, that was that
right moment, that was a bad look.
It was a wake up, being like, whoa, we're depleting all of these deer.
That iconic picture of a dude standing on top of bison skulls, right?
Exactly.
A mountain.
I think if you can't change everyone's mind, so I think if you can't change everyone's mind, those that can influence those people, hunters,
or educate them. It's just a little bit of education,
leadership, and positive influence. I think those stories should be told, and they should be told in a way where it's like, let me tell you how I got my steak last night. Yeah. And it goes into a 3-month story of scouting, physical fitness, preparation, making sure your round or your arrow is on target, all these things to lead up to that steak. And then the question is, tell me how you got your steak last night. Yeah. There's a big difference between where you get it and where somebody else gets it. It's not knocking them, but this is what I've done to honor this and earn it. And I'm not saying you're a bad person for going to the store and getting a steak, but
the latter too, like the effort, to your point, what's the story? I got in my car, I went to Safeway and fucking went to the butcher and I said, that one looks good. Like
that's it.
Yeah.
That's all they could say. Somebody could also say, I went to work for 12 hours today to do this. I can't get out and hunt. And I would say, I respect that in every single way. And then
I'm not trying to turn everybody into a hunter either.
What I'm trying to do is educate those that say hunting is all these horrific sort of things, and it's like it's not, and the process to get this one steak or this couple 100 pounds of meat is I've invested this, I've educated myself in this, I've learned these laws, these rules, these regulations, I've picked up 35 pounds of trash from trailheads that weekend campers leave. You know what I mean? Like there's so many little things that can go into it, and sometimes I think if we refocus, yes, the kill at the end is a joyous moment, but these are the things that led to that. If we overlook that, people only focus on.
I agree with you 100%. That's super cool. It's a great approach, and I wish every hunter would take that approach. So
yeah,
I think
a lot of them do. I think they just don't know how.
I think 90% of them do. I think it's
without a doubt.
Yeah,
I think they just don't know how to share that in a way where somebody's not going to come at them and be like, you're this or you're this, because for them it's a different sort of journey. And I think
there's different ways. Like I don't do grip and grin photos specifically for this reason. Like I always share the journey on this podcast and stuff like that. But I think that this is one of the most purest forms of social media.
Absolutely.
I think podcasting should be considered social media because you're really putting yourself out there. And like we've talked for over 2 hours now. You can't sit here and fake what you are, right?
No.
Like you can't.
There's no scripts. It's not like you're going to ask me these 3 questions.
Yeah, I didn't send you a punch list and be like, Donnie, this is what we're going to talk about. Now, there was a little bit more direction in this one because we had a practice run.
We did, yeah.
But yeah. No, I appreciate everything that you're doing, man. Let's go ahead and wrap this thing up. We've been at it for a couple hours, and I know your time is valuable. So
no worries, man.
This is awesome, man. Thanks for bringing in the books. If you're listening or watching this, go get Earth Roamer by Donny Dust. Go get Scavenger. Keep a lookout for Mud, Sweat, and Beards. Yeah. What's the racing thing?
First Man Out. That's going to be on
coming out
in the upcoming months. Discovery Plus.
I saw you with Cardi B or something.
I was, yes. Yeah. Oh God. Yeah, I did Cardi B's TV show Cardi Tries, where she came out. Okay. She came out and did a day of survival camping with me. And another guy, Afion Jackson. You can go see that episode. I think it's on her Facebook page or something.
I'm gonna watch it for you, not for Cardi.
Yeah.
No disrespect, Cardi. We love you. But yeah, where's the best place? Like I follow you on Instagram. I'm very seldomly on TikTok. Oh, Shane Smith is one of your followers there.
Yeah, man, he's hilarious.
I just saw him in San Francisco a couple months ago. We're trying to get him on the podcast.
Oh my God, if he comes,
he's fucking hilarious.
Please call me. I just want to stand outside and fanboy for 3 minutes because
let's get both of you in at the same time. That would be fucking rad.
It could be his. I just want to be like, oh my God, because he's cool, man.
Yeah, he's a great comic. Sorry, we got sidetracked there for a minute. He's like one of my favorite stand-ups right now. Man. But yeah, go follow Donny Dust on Instagram at Donny Dust. But Donny, where I know you have your websites. There's a couple different websites, right?
Yeah, pretty much Paleo Track Survival. That's my school website. I'm kind of always updating and changing the course offerings, so you just kind of have to go there and check in. And then DonnyDust.com is just kind of what's going on, TV, film, books, so on and so forth. And that links to all the social media. Yeah, and then you can, if you just Google Donny Dust, something will pop up, and you can go down a rabbit hole of videos or photos or whatnot. But yeah, man, I always enjoy coming up here.
We always love having you. You're welcome back here anytime, and you just let us know when, and then let's talk in another 45 days or so, and we'll see how shredded we are.
Yeah, we'll do.
Or if we made it.
We'll just lift up, and we'll be like, oh, I ate a piece of last night. No, I think once I knock out this bison experiment, we should have a meat rendezvous.
That'd be sweet.
Eat some bison, and we'll do something like that.
Okay. That'd be rad.
I'm all for that.
That'd be super rad. We don't have to record a podcast.
No,
we can just hang out.
Maybe the tongue. Have you ever had tongue?
Oh, it's one of my favorites. Honestly, I used to work on a bison ranch as a kid. That's what I would do when I was in high school. It's actually right down the road here.
Right on.
I would go feed bison in the morning before I went to school, and then after school. And
so
I have some experience with that, and I've got sent home with some free organ meat and stuff because nobody really buys that.
Oh, it's the best.
The hearts are like the size of your head, man. That's insane.
They're like footballs. They're monsters. Yeah.
All right.
Well, I'll do it, man. Well,
cool.
We'll keep it going. Stay on the meat.
Yeah.
meet, and then we'll link up again.
Donnie, thank you so much, man.
Indeed, brother.
I really appreciate you.
Appreciate it.
And thanks for all the cool stuff.
Indeed.
All right.
Thanks.
Everybody, thank you for listening. Jeremy, how you doing?
Excellent, buddy.
Cool. Thanks for listening to the Mountainside Podcast. If you haven't had a chance to do this already, please take a moment, follow, like, subscribe, or rate on whatever platform you catch the Mountainside Podcast at. Also, if you'd like some more information on upcoming episodes, safety tips, access to all of our affiliates, and all the badass discounts that we get here at the Mountainside Podcast, check out themountainsidepodcast.com.